Hey you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything we love in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I am one of your hosts, Cameron Hawkins, and along with me, as always, is my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how are we feeling today?
Oh, I am just look, it
Dead.
is go time right now. It is go time. I was working on some stuff yesterday that like wasn't really clicking. Like I was just trying to get an extra video done before all this rush happened, and I hit a wall at a point where I was like, "You know what? I'm just going to mentally check out today because I know starting tomorrow, which is today, is just there's no stopping. Like I have so many video ideas, so many things I want to get done. It is go time right now because of what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. That goddamn Switch to Direct.
Yes, we got an hour-long direct with a lot of information both during the presentation as well as after. There's so much to talk about.
So much.
So much so that this is all we're talking about this episode. This is the Switch 2 presentation extravaganza. That is the title of this episode. I've had it planned out for a while. So know what we've been playing this week. No topic of the show. It's just Switch 2, Switch 2, Switch 2. And I think you're still going to get a beefy episode from us. But before we get into that, we're going to go over some housekeeping. First things first, if you've been enjoying the show, please go to your podcasting platform of choice, give us a 5-star rating, or you can go to YouTube, give us a subscription to our YouTube channel. It helps with exposure. We've been getting a good, like a steady increase of subs the past few weeks. Like nothing crazy, like, 5 or so, but
Yeah.
hey,
Hey,
progress is
everyone
progress.
counts.
Yeah, and we appreciate all the love and support. But if you want to give us a little bit more love and support, and you want to help us financially, you can go to our Patreon, Party Chat, a JRPG podcast, and throw a few bucks our way that give you a list of different rewards depending on what tier you subscribe to, whether it be getting the episode a day early. This is a special instance as we knew that the presentation was going to be the day after we normally record. So this is going publicly to Patreon and the public at the same time. But normally you'll get an episode a day early. We have our monthly Q&A where you can ask us any questions and we just sit around and yap for a few hours. And then we have Campfire Catalog. We just released our first episode of Campfire Catalog, which was all about Chrono Trigger. And we have a new Campfire Catalog game, and that game is, drumroll, The Legend of Dragoon. So if you want to hear us talk about The Legend of Dragoon, if you've never played The Legend of Dragoon before, you can subscribe to our Keyblade Wielder tier or higher. And when that episode drops, sometime before the end of June, we'll be able to dig into all of that goodness. I've already started it, and I have some thoughts, but I'm going to save those thoughts for later. And then go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson. Switch to, baby.
Switch to
And
Switch 2.
Kevin is going to be
Not sleeping.
unleashing. Yeah, not sleeping and unleashing a abundance of Switch 2 related videos. So if you want to, you should subscribe over to that channel. Give him some love as we're trying to get him to 1 million subs before the end of this year. But now I'm going to pass it over to the Switch 2 guru, Kevin Kenson, and he is going to lead this discussion as we talk about everything that was announced or revealed today at the Switch 2 presentation. Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, there is a lot. Like a lot. So one thing worth clarifying right away is that, again, the Switch 2 Direct was an hour long, just a little bit over, and there's a lot of stuff they packed in there. Very dense, not a lot of breathing room. And yet, despite that, after it ended, we got not just as much information, but pretty much a lot more stuff came out. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to work our way through kind of some different categories, and we're going to focus more so on stuff from the Direct, but when it's relevant, we'll wrap in some of that stuff that came out a little later. And then at the end of the podcast, we'll kind of go over all the other hanging bits of extra little news we learned. And the first thing I want to touch on is kind of just the main bullet points of release. The things that we know about this system for being able to pick it up. Release date is going to be June 5th. There are going to be 2 different bundles available. You can get the system by itself or a bundle that comes with Mario Kart World. It's a digital copy, not a physical one. So if you're a physical fan, not a bundle you want to pick up. And pricing was not announced at the Direct itself, but they did clarify that later. I think they were kind of holding off because there's going to be a bit of regional variance going on here. For us, based in the US, the immediate thing worth noting is that the system by itself is $449, while the bundle is $499. So it's a $50 increase. We do know that Mario Kart World by itself is going to be $80, so you're basically saving $30. And then also not at the Direct, but something we learned not too long after is that also for the US, pre-orders are going up April 9th, and that seems to be everywhere. The time of day might vary, but Best Buy, Amazon, GameStop, directly from Nintendo, whoever you want to order this thing from, April 9th is the day that this is all going down. That is for the system, the accessories, the games, anything you want to order. So be ready on that day if you're trying to grab one, because while I'm sure Nintendo is trying to have as much stock as possible, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah. First off, I just want to say June 5th, literally the worst day possible.
For us, the absolute worst day.
The worst day possible. Because for those that don't know, we're going to be in LA. Well, Kevin's already in LA, but we're going to be in LA specifically doing SGF. We are going to be doing other media stuff. We are going to not be able to put as much time into the Switch 2 launch than we would like, you know? I mean, and this is more saying for you than for me. For me, I just like want to be able to pick up the console and play it.
Yeah.
For you make these videos and like they're releasing this at a time where like, you know, this is a great time during the year to socialize and network, and you're probably going to be like, oh, I'm done with SGF. I need to go home and film this unboxing video. I need to go home and do this. So that really sucks for you. And I don't know, ultimately it's going to be your decision, but
it's going to be a fun few days. I mean, I'll tell you right now, we got to work on specifics later, but there's a solid chance I'm going to try and take like at least one full day off of SGF, because like there's no way. Like SGF is great and there is some awesome opportunities, but at the end of the day, this is literally bread and butter content that I know I have a lot of viewers that want to see. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be fun. I'm going to try my best to fight my way into maybe getting an early review unit. I have not had the most success working with Nintendo in the past, but it's not out of the question. So we'll see. That's a whole other thing, though. That's a whole other thing.
I mean, like, it is. I will say, like, the day that it comes out would actually be the best day, because it is like, yes, there's other stuff happening for SGF, but it's mainly just the presentation.
Well, the presentation is the day after. So the first full day is the full day.
So the 5th is a Thursday. Thursday's normally when the SGF presentations are.
I agree with you, but if you go on SGF's website right now, they say the 6th is the presentation.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, that's even better then.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. It's not completely screwed, but it is a little bit a little messy.
Okay. But yeah. So that I didn't want to get too too on a tangent for that,
sure.
But I also want to say that like $449. I think that sucks for as a lot of us, even analysts, like we're saying like, oh yeah, it's probably gonna be $400. And normally like when when a new console comes out, the consensus is normally true. Not always, but like a lot of the time it is. So the fact that we're off this time, and like, not trying to get into politics, but the decisions that the US government are making are 100% affecting these prices. And that really sucks. To the point where Japan, I don't know if you put this in the notes, but Japan literally is region locking the Japanese Switches so that people can't import those cheaper Switches in Japan to save money. which
Yes.
really sucks.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I did have that in my notes for later, but we can go over it real quick. So Japan has two different versions of the Switch 2 you can grab, not counting the bundle situation. They have the worldwide Switch 2, which is 70,000 yen, roughly. I'm rounding up a little bit here. And that's in line with like what worldwide pricing is like. And then they have a Japan specific one that is 50,000 yen, quite a good discount, especially considering exchange rate right now. But that one is completely region locked down. You cannot use any eShop other than the Japanese eShop. You have to make a Japanese account connected to it. You're not running non-Japanese versions of games. It is a Japan-specific one, which I think the logic on this one is a little more that they wanted an option for at home that is affordable because Japan has its own economic stuff that it's working through right now, but they didn't want that to suddenly turn into the model that everyone tries importing. So that's why there are those two different versions. The one that falls in line with everyone else's pricing, and then a Japan one that is more expensive but more limited in what it is capable of. One last thing on the pre-order side of things I want to talk about, because I do think this is interesting. I've seen a few people see this and be kind of scared, being like, oh, why does this work this way? But honestly, I like it a lot. If you're pre-ordering from Nintendo specifically, so this doesn't apply to Best Buy or Amazon or anyone else, this is a Nintendo thing specifically, they are actually using a priority system for locking down pre-orders where they are doing a first come, first serve for people that have done, I believe it's you had to have had Nintendo Switch Online at some point, as well as at minimum 50 hours of gameplay on Switch, and that has to be as of April 2nd, aka the day they announced this in the first place. So that's preventing anyone from suddenly trying to meet those requirements last second. The main goal here is trying to curtail scalpers. Like, that's the point. This is making sure that everyone ordering from Nintendo is someone that has an active Nintendo Switch account. They've been using the system. They are playing games. It sucks a little bit if you're in a situation where it's like, oh, I wanted to buy one for myself and my kid or whatever, that kind of thing, which is why other retailers are getting it. But I think it's a great option for Nintendo, at least, to try and calm down their ordering queue a little bit and make sure that, you know, you don't have people ordering 7 Switches under different accounts so that they can just flip them for double the price point later on. Because, again, as much as Nintendo is going to try and make these available, it's definitely going to be a very hectic launch as far as getting hold of systems, I'm sure.
Yeah, every console launch more or less is a nightmare to a certain extent, so that totally makes sense. And just to clarify, you're basically right here. It says invitation emails will be prioritized on a first come first served basis to registrants who have purchased a Nintendo Switch Online membership with a minimum of 12 months of paid membership and a minimum of 50 total gameplay hours as of April 2nd.
Yep.
So, yeah. So that's cool. I already did it, like, you know, admittedly. Here's the thing, like, I'm not trying to be a GameStop defender in any sense, but GameStop normally does right by me when it comes to console launches. I got my PS5 at GameStop because I was just on top of that's like one of the perks of living in a small town like Reno. It's just like, oh, like a lot of people aren't trying to like put this much effort into making sure that they lock this down. So like on April 9th, I'm probably going to go to my local GameStop right when they open and just be like, here's my $50, pre-order secured. But also it's, again, I'm going to be out of town. So I also don't know like how or when I'm going to pick that up, or like if I have a friend pick it up for me. I might even have to like try and see if I can secure a pre-order in LA so that I can just pick it up when I'm in LA, or have someone pick it up for me and then just, you know, figure it out from there. But yeah, it's really bad timing.
Yeah, it's messy. But yeah, so that's everything going on for the launch of the system. Again, if you're in the US at least, it's going to be $450 for the base system, $500 for the bundle. And pre-orders open up April 9th. That is also, again, when we're getting accessories, games, all that good stuff. And we'll go in depth on what those specifically are in a bit. Before we get to games and stuff, though, I want to work our way through everything we learned about the Switch 2 itself, which is a lot. You know, I figured we weren't going to see them do like an in-depth spec dive. We weren't going to get like, oh, here's the GPU and what it has for teraflops, blah, blah, blah. Like, didn't get any of that, but they found a way to talk about everything else they could as far as like, end game performance, different special features and things that are being added by the system. There's a couple things they left out that I want to talk about that we've learned a little bit after. But as far as things that the presentation goes, some of the main notes worth noting get right away. We are seeing a resolution bump on both docked and handheld gameplay. This is now a 4K system when docked, 1080p handheld. The handheld display is also a 120 hertz refresh rate, so that allows up to 120 FPS gameplay, which the previous Switch was only up to 60. That is fantastic for some titles. And we're also getting HDR support across the board. So you're going to be able to play games in HDR if you have a TV that supports that. And in handheld gameplay, you're getting HDR as well. And the display for the system is a pretty good size upgrade. We're now looking at a 7.9-inch display. So that's quite a bit larger. And thankfully, because of the resolution bump, that means we're not going to be like getting noticeably less crispy visuals. It's going to balance out pretty nicely. So that's awesome. Cam, any thoughts on that before we move on to the other? There's a lot of bullet points I got here of things we've learned.
Yeah, I think the 120 hertz is really cool, but there's an asterisk with that, and I know that we're going to talk about it. I'm not trying to jump ahead, but
Sure.
battery life.
Oh yeah.
On the system, like it's just like, yeah, it's cool that I could play, because in reality, I do not think we're going to see the 120 FPS used frequently, and when it is used, it will likely only be used by first party titles. I don't really see in most, like I see very rare cases that a third party is going to be like, hey, here's 1080 120 FPS. I could be wrong there.
I think it depends on the game. Sure, like there's certain genres where I think higher refresh rate ends up being like a more common thing.
Sure.
Racing titles, competitive FPS stuff, it's very very nice to have a 120 option for those, even if you're sacrificing some quality, because at the end of the day, higher frames is better reactivity. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a thing where like every single game on the market is 120 FPS. We don't even see that on PlayStation and Xbox. There's tons of games that do not support 120 at all. But yeah, getting ahead a little bit, but we might as well talk about it right away because this is something about the system. We did not learn this at the Direct, but we learned it after. Battery life. It's not great, people. It's not great. It's not the absolute worst, but it is pretty close. So we are looking at 2 to 6.5 hours of game time, depending on how demanding the title is, which is worse than the current model Switches. It's also competitively pretty bad compared to things like PC handhelds. I mean, PC handhelds, if you're putting them to their like high demand modes, you'll burn through it faster, but they intentionally have like lower power drain modes to make it last as long as possible. Switch, as far as we know, isn't giving us power options like that, so you just got the one, and it doesn't last very long. I think that's like the absolute minimum for being able to just like use it on occasion on the go. I will say, as like a handheld dedicated person, I'm definitely going to need to replug in very often. Like, I don't dock my Switch very often. And so I'm definitely going to be pushing that to its limit quite a bit. One other aspect of the battery they covered real quick is that it also takes 3 hours to charge it to full from a low battery. And that's when it's technically in sleep mode. So it could charge a little faster if you have it completely shut down, but probably not appreciably fast enough. So that's still, that's not a lot of battery life and quite a bit of time to charge it back up. And it makes sense, honestly. Like, it sucks, but it makes sense. It's the same size, roughly, as the Switch, same thickness, but clearly a more powerful system, and that power comes at a cost. In this case, it's battery life. Great.
Yeah, it's still... I think that for me, when I saw I can play this docked in 1080p, like for Metroid Prime 4. Oh, yeah. 1080p, 120 FPS, like that is definitely an ideal game for something like that. And then I saw the battery life, and I'm just like, I think I'm good. I think I'll just play it docked, and like it changed my mind. And I just don't. We've talked about it on the podcast before. Like, I'm one of those weird people that prefer and normally plays my Switch docked. And hearing that this stuff about the battery life makes me want to continue that trend, despite the upgrades that they've put into the handheld mode of and like the the tablet of it all, and it's just kind of like it's kind of been canceled out by the battery life because obviously we'll see, right? We'll see like how drastic it really is. Like, yeah, how much time do you have to play Metroid Prime 4 at 1080p 120 FPS? If it is like closer to 5 to 6 hours, cool. Then like maybe I will change my mind. But just like thinking about it now without that detailed information, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll probably just play this docked 4K 60 and like go from there. Because I mean it's still 60, and like again, and we've had this conversation before too. I don't care a whole lot about FPS as long as it runs well. That's
Yep.
all that matters to me.
Yeah,
So,
reliable, stable frame rate is ultimately more important than, like, don't get me wrong, I like a higher one when it's stable and an option, but like, if it's just stable at a low one, that still works for me. One thing I do
Yeah.
want to clarify real quick, and we'll talk about this a little more once we get to games. Handheld performance for Metroid Prime 4 is not 1080 120. It's either 1080 60 or 720 120 hertz. So you're choosing
okay.
between if you want the highest resolution possible in handheld, 1080p, or the highest refresh rate possible, which is that 120.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Then I probably will definitely play it docked.
Yeah, it's definitely a trade-off. I feel like I'm just going to end up like I've already naturally done what I call Game Gear mode very often, which is just like be nearby an outlet and have that sucker plugged in. But I totally get why this is less than ideal for a lot of people. All right, moving on to a couple other things. Let's talk Joy-Cons real quick. So we already knew they were magnetic. They talked a little bit more in depth about how that works. Basically, the SL and SR buttons are actually like made of metal, and so they attach to the magnets inside of the system. On top of being metal, those SL and SR buttons are larger, so they should be easier to press when using a single Joy-Con sideways. Not my favorite control style, but like it comes up. There's those fun moments where it's like, oh, I'm going to do quick local multiplayer with someone. Here's the Joy-Con, and so that'll be a little more comfortable. The sticks are bigger. They just simply said the sticks are bigger, and I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out if that's also height, which I don't think it is. I think it's just that the head of the stick is larger, so that's a little more comfortable for your thumb, but that doesn't necessarily change the range of motion, which can be a thing for some games. And then one thing that has been like the worst kept secret as far as special features for the Switch goes, the Switch 2, is mouse style input. You can take a Joy-Con, put it down, and use it like a mouse. What is interesting is a lot of people were assuming this was specific to one Joy-Con, like it was going to be something like just for the right. It does work for both, and there are going to be games where you can like take both Joy-Cons, put them down. We haven't seen any kind of like peripheral to make this more comfortable looking, because just seeing them use it in demonstrations, I'm like, oh, that's neat. I don't know how I would play a game for like a longer period of time in this style. Maybe I'll be surprised. Maybe I'll try it out, but I just know that the thinness of the Switch in general really causes a lot of hand cramping issues if you don't have tiny hands. And so I just see using that mouse style input being a bit of an issue. But it's cool that it exists. We already have a couple examples of it that we'll talk about in a bit. I think it's neat. I'm very excited to see it in practice.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the utility behind it. Like I understand like, oh, I get why people would really like that in like Metroid Prime 4 where they show it off a bit. In the more shooter settings. And the one game with like the basically like the wheelchair basketball, like that was like a fun use of that
Like an interesting control
feature.
style.
Yeah, that mechanic. But I don't particularly see myself using it a whole lot. I'm curious as to like how much they're going to commit to that in their games, because it kind of gives me touchpad vibes from PS4, where it's like,
sure.
oh yeah, there are certain games that like really tried to commit to using this, and then like, but overall not really used a whole lot. And now, like every future PlayStation game, assuming that the games are backwards compatible or like console wise, is gonna have a touchpad because you need that ability.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the vibe I get from it currently, but it's cool.
Yeah. I will say one other genre that I think it's interesting for, and this is a third party actually, that's I think the best highlight of it right now. We know Civ 7 is coming to
Yes.
Switch 2, and I think those kind of I don't think Civ is technically a 4X, but like games that require you to be like moving around a mouse and clicking it, and stuff where they always find a way to make it work with controller, but like ultimately a mouse would make it a lot easier. I think that's a cool thing to fit for it as well. Like, I'd be very interested in seeing like if Baldur's Gate 3 eventually got ported or
Yes.
something. Like isometric RPGs, I think is another case where that can be a really
Yes.
cool, handy way to control. The mystery of the C button. I think what was probably one of the most common theories did end up being the right one, which is the C stands for chat. And it was a pretty large focus of the Direct where basically we're getting an official Nintendo version of Discord. What is interesting is that this is a system level thing, so it's not like for just specific games. You can just like hop on a call with friends and you can all be playing different stuff. You can screen share all of your games individually, which is another thing I thought was hilarious as part of the presentation is that they didn't try sugarcoating it. They like had one person's Mario Kart gameplay that was just like 4 frames a second. It's like, yeah, that might happen if you have bad internet. Like there's no like it's not going to always be pristine great looking. But the C is going to be used as like a quick action button for opening chat relevant settings. So like if you have to quickly mute your mic or something, that is what that button does. Tying into that whole social feature aspect, they are also going to be selling a camera that comes out on launch day, and they talked about how like, oh, you know, you can show yourself in voice chat, and you can even put yourself in front of your own gameplay while showing your friends. They didn't talk about price during the presentation because again, regional variances, but this did come out later, where it is currently being listed for $49.99. So it's 50 extra bucks if you want to use that functionality.
Yeah. I mean, listen. I know that this is something that they had to show.
Yeah.
That it was the segment of the presentation where it's just like, hey, this doesn't really apply much to many of the people that are tuning in to see this presentation, but like it needs to be shown. It needs to be like the knowledge has to be there for the more casual audiences of like, you know, parents and getting this for their kids, things like that. It is, you know, they're basically trying to do their own form of like Discord in a sense.
Yeah.
And you know,
I,
cool.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm excited about this, but I am curious. Like I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see how well it works. And whether or not I personally get into it, I'm very curious what Nintendo's like back-end analytics show a year from now as far as like how many active users are regularly using it, you know? Because at the end of the day, if I really want to do a Discord call with friends, I don't have to rely on a specific system. I can just do that on my phone real quick and then keep playing on whatever system I'm playing on. You know, I don't need to have it built into the system that I'm necessarily using. But a first-party option, like, I don't know, maybe a lot of people will find that as like a easy segue into trying that style of thing. One thing I did forget to note real quick that ties into this, the system does also now have a built-in microphone, which can be used as part of this feature. The microphone is supposed to also have noise canceling, so it helps isolate specifically like voices and drown out some background stuff. Who knows how actually well that's going to work in practice? That's just, we won't see until it releases.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't need specifically the Nintendo Switch camera. You can use other cameras to.
I haven't seen that clarified anywhere personally.
Okay, I thought I saw it somewhere.
Yeah, that's very possible. There's been again tons of news has come out afterwards. If you want to look that up real quick, while I go over some other points, but that is not something I've personally seen. I've also seen a lot of people hope that you can connect third-party mice to use the mouse style controls, but I haven't seen that talked about anywhere from Nintendo either. Yeah, it would make sense if it just accepted like any USB-C camera, like that'd be handy, but I have not seen confirmation of that personally. One last thing to know about the social feature is that technically it is going to require you to have an active Nintendo Switch Online membership, except for roughly the first year. They've announced that for now it's going to be a free feature, but starting March 31st of next year, you will have to have Nintendo Switch Online to take advantage of it. So they want people to be able to try it out. I'm sure it's also because they just want to stress test how well this feature works. And then once it's, well up and running a year from now you got to start paying for it, which, a lot of people already have Nintendo Switch Online set up, but this is one more reason to try and get people to pay for it if they aren't already.
Yeah, so it says here you can connect a compatible USB-C camera.
Which that compatible is
Such
carrying a lot of
as
weight. Yeah.
Yeah, such as the Nintendo Switch 2 camera. So it sounds like that there will be other USB-C cameras that you can use it for. Don't know if it's all, don't know
Yeah.
anything about that, but it seems like that you don't need specifically the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which I personally think is a good thing because what we saw did not look great. So,
I mean, it's also only $50, which in the realm of, I mean, webcams in general don't look great, but yeah, and I also that compatible is just doing a lot of heavy lifting because I'm very curious if that means what is Logitech going to be able to update their current line of webcams to work with this, or is it there's going to be officially Nintendo licensed third-party options that are not just the first-party one, where there is
yeah,
the Logitech Nintendo camera or the Razer Nintendo camera, whatever. Next thing, this is a really cool feature. I'm really happy that this is coming back for the system. Game sharing. This is something Nintendo has done in the past as part of the 3DS, and we have not seen it for a little while now. Effectively, this is a feature where for certain games, you can do local multiplayer with multiple Switches, or Switch 2s in this case. Although it can work with regular Switch as well, they clarified, while only having one game cart. So let's say, for instance, Mario Party Jamboree supports this feature, and you want to do local multiplayer without just doing a docked gameplay experience. You can be on your Switch with your one copy, be around your friends who have their own Switches, and they'll be able to play with you, even though you just have the one. Something else they talked about with this as well, and I'm not sure how well this will work in actual practice, but it's cool that it supports it, is that you can also take this local play online. So you can only share with people local to you, but then if it's with a game that has additional online functionalities where maybe you get a group together and you hop into a multiplayer lobby online, that's something you'd be able to do as part of this as well. So super freaking cool feature. I mean, they're this is one of those things where sure, it may not necessarily work as good as we want it to. We'll just find that out at launch. But in concept, I don't really have any big complaints about this. That's just cool.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing negative about that. It kind of it's basically like DS download play.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Yeah.
And so that's cool. I'm glad they brought that back.
Yeah, super cool. Backwards compatibility. We already knew about this, but there has been some additional clarification on it. You are able to support, they are supporting both physical and digital games for backwards compatibility. The Switch 2 is also going to have a full system transfer feature from Switch 1. So if you have a current Switch and you want to just get into the Switch 2 and make that your new system, you can just bring everything over in one system transfer. You don't have to manually log in and re-download stuff. One thing that was not a part of the presentation but is relevant to this and is a little bit more of a headache than I thought it was going to be. They've released PDFs of what games are currently having issues with back compat. And this isn't something where it's because it doesn't have an IR sensor, you can't play these exact games. It's literally a list of games where Nintendo's even yeah, we're looking into why these don't work, but they just don't right now, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Something about how they're developed. It's quite a long list, actually. There's two separate lists. One where the game can launch but has problems playing, and then one where games just don't launch at all. I think one of the funniest things about these lists to me is that they have a little section of what the situation is right now, and every single one, except one, says Nintendo is investigating. So who knows? They might get patched, they might get fixed. We just don't know, but it's quite a few games. There's some big names in there too. A lot of games that were normally demanding on other platforms and then got lower demand versions on Switch, like Doom Eternal, are having problems. The one exception is Fortnite, where the situation just says Switch 2 version in development. Hopefully that comes out on launch, because that means if it's having problems, if Fortnite for Switch 2 isn't ready at launch and you like playing Fortnite, you might not be able to play it on the Switch 2 until that new version drops, because it's having issues right now. So I'll have a link down below where I can in descriptions on the podcast or on YouTube so people can like see the full list for themselves. It's quite a few games. It's not, I wouldn't say that there's any like big names on there, but there's definitely a few like indie darlings and multi-platform games that's like, oh wow, really? Like that's having problems.
One, yeah, one of the ones that I believe I saw that is a little bit frustrating to me because I haven't played it yet and I probably won't play it until Switch 2 comes out is Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus.
Mm.
Because for those that don't know, like Tokyo Xanadu got a Switch port last year, and it had a updated localization because the localization for the PS4 was notoriously bad, or not great.
Yeah.
And they fixed that, and it's basically the definitive way to play that game. And apparently, it's having some issues as well. So
Yeah. And again, being investigated. So we've got
yeah,
basically 2 months till release. Hopefully, more of these get resolved and it's a much shorter list by release. But that is worth being aware of. Next up, storage. The system is going to have an internal storage of 256 gigabytes. That's not including space taken up by the system stuff itself, so it's going to be a little less than that. They've also clarified that the system will continue to support micro SDs, but it needs to be a micro SD express card, not a regular micro SD. So even if you have like those Nintendo branded micro SDs from the original Switch, if they're not express, not going to work on the Switch too. So something worth being aware of. How do you feel about that amount of storage? Because it's more that like they emphasized how it
yeah.
was like 8 times the current Switch, but the current Switch wasn't exactly a great bar to clear. Like that was a pretty low amount.
Yeah. I have a micro SD card for my Switch, but again, I'm primarily a physical collector, so I really didn't have to worry. Storage was never really an issue for me, but obviously now that these games are going to be much bigger with 4K support and things like that. And also like the game key cards, which we'll get into
Yeah, I was going to
later.
bring that up tied into this, but yeah,
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. Um, I'm still going into this being like, I do not feel like I'm in the need to buy a micro SD card right when the Switch 2 comes out, but it'll definitely be an inevitability. Um, it sucks how like expensive those type of cards are currently. Like I think like a 1 terabyte's like around 200.
Oh, if you really want to go
Um,
out, yeah, it kind of exponentially increases once you get to those higher end ones, but like
okay.
it's still there. Yeah, if you get like a 128, it's not very expensive. But if you're getting into like, yeah, I want like a 1 TB, like that's gonna get pricey.
Yeah, if you just want to, if you just want to get the one and just know that you're probably never going to have to worry about it for the rest of the Switch 2 life cycle, and you can just kind of keep everything that is digitally on there downloaded, then yeah, like 200 is like a little steep for me, but it is still it's good that we got more storage and it is kind of a wait and see situation again because of the whole game key card stuff. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So game key ties into this because this technically already exists on Switch, but they're basically highlighting it much more for Switch 2, which also may imply that it's going to be a more common issue, where game key titles are basically games where you can buy them physically if you want, but it's not a true physical card, at least in the traditional sense. These are games where you can buy it physically, but the full game will not be present on the card because it's just too big to fit on it, or for whatever reason, the publisher didn't want to try and fit the whole game on it. And so when you pop it in your system, it'll show the game, but you still have to do a download to cover the difference. We do have games that already do this on Switch, but they're really driving it home now with these titles. We only know of 2 for now, which are the Bravely Default Remaster that we'll talk about later, as well as Street Fighter 6. The other thing about these games is that they are horrifically ugly cover art. They just have all the warnings blasting on them, which on the one hand, I guess is kind of good that they're making it very, very clear that, hey, this isn't really a complete physical cart. But at the same time, if you're a physical collector and you like having a physical version, even with those stipulations and restrictions, it is definitely making for not the best looking cover art.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here. I think that it's one of those things where it feels like this weird middle ground between what the what they did with the Switch 1, where like some games would be like, yeah, here's a box with a code in it. And now it's like, yeah, there's a cart, but we didn't want to print the game on the cart. And it's just like,
Well, to
why?
be fair, in some cases, it is literally a size limitation situation. Like, I imagine that's what's going on with
But
Street Fighter 6, because, like, Switch game carts aren't that gigantic. And if we're going
but
to get 4K games, sizes are going up.
well, here's the thing about that though. Cyberpunk is being printed on a 64 gigabyte cart.
Yeah. No, 64 gigabyte
And
is certainly an option. And, like
uh,
Bravely Default absolutely makes no sense to be.
yes.
Yeah, I don't know why Bravely Default is the situation. I can't see how that ballooned that much in size. Street Fighter 6, if it's supposed to include like all the fighters, all the stages, everything, 4K support, I could see how that got
So
big.
they specified in the release that for Street Fighter 6, it is the I don't okay. So actually, now that you're mentioning Street Fighter 6, maybe misread it, but I thought I saw it that it was the base game is on the cart,
Yeah.
but the seasonal DLC is not.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Which makes sense, yeah. So that's not really like the situation that we're talking about with the game key card. Like I
Sure,
can totally
but it is being marketed as a game key title. Like it's getting a game key case and is considered one because it's not the complete package. Even though
yeah,
the package is DLC separated that normally would be, but they are marketing it that way.
yeah. I just don't agree with that decision, I guess, because
Sure.
like yeah, a lot like if there's like a game of the year or a complete edition, that's fine. But like we know that Street Fighter 6 is an ongoing title, so like yeah, it does make sense to me that the DLC, the seasonal content, is digital only, and then the base game is physical. Like that's just kind of like how kind of things are in that aspect.
Sure.
Yeah. So I with the game key cards, it's better than boxing code, yes, but it's also just like you're doing this half step measure up that's just like, why don't you just do everything in the aspects where it makes sense? And like sure, like CD Projekt Red is really like the only company that has done stuff on Switch where they're like, yeah, we're gonna like pay more for the higher storage cart, so all of this is on the cart. But like that also doesn't give these other companies an excuse not to do that. Like
Yeah.
just and so like it's just upsetting, especially Square. Like Square is so good about that
Well,
stuff. And
they
good.
actually haven't been, not for Switch. Square's been really weird
What
about this. Like one of the really annoying ones, Star Ocean 2 remake. It has the download required badge on the front of the
yes.
box,
Yes.
and it doesn't. Like it doesn't. Like it's
Yes.
all in the cart. Like it's like they
Yes.
thought it was going to, and then it ended up not. But they kept the. So like this is this matches actually for Square historically as far as like with Switch games. Like they've kind of tried cutting this around this before, and I think there are some that are download required. So
I don't know of any Switch games or Switch Square games that are download required, and I do remember the Star Ocean thing. So like yes, you could consider that like a tease of like how they wanted to do that moving forward. But if I while we're talking about other stuff, I can look into that. But I'm pretty sure that like every Square game that got a physical release, like
yeah,
an
a true
ESRB,
physical.
like something that wasn't PlayAsia, where PlayAsia got those exclusive Square games. And even those, it is the full game on the cart. Like
Yeah.
so to me, it's just like Square, you're normally good about this. I'm kind of disappointed. And not even though I will because I'm a sicko, I'm going to buy this game key card. I want a physical I want the physical. I want cuz another thing we really don't know is like what happens 10 years down the line when the eShop closes? Do the game key cards just give you that download still? Like will that
That just
still
depends on what they choose to maintain. Like 3DS right now,
Yeah.
you can still re-download stuff even though you can't buy anything, but we also don't know how long that's going to last. It's just entirely
Yeah.
at the mercy of like how long they choose to support it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just one of those things where, for me, when this was announced, I'm like, okay, cool, I can sell my 3DS copy. Now I'm like, there's no way I'm selling my 3DS copy.
I would be mad at you either way, but
Well, because it's the most like, I'm not like I need every version of every game on every system in most cases. So I was just like, okay, cool. Like I don't need the 3DS version anymore. I can sell it. But with this game key card stuff, it's like, no, I'm gonna keep it because who knows what the future holds.
yep. Yeah, there's always going to be that fear of like how well does Nintendo handle this? I think considering also how long the Switch life cycle has been, I feel like 10 years from now is probably going to be pretty safe, but there absolutely is a expiration date that's going to come up, right? Whether that's 20 years from now, 30 years from now, there's going to be a point where you just can't re-download that game. You can make sure you have a Switch where it's like still installed and good to go, but that's not the same as like having a true physical copy that, as long as it doesn't
Yeah.
degrade, still works. One last
Yeah.
thing. Oh,
Oh, the last thing I was gonna say, like, someone did make a good like point about this. It's just like, yeah, it's not the game on the cart, but it's also like, hey, you can. This is basically a resellable digital
yes.
copy of the game.
You can still hand it to someone and it'll work.
Exactly.
It doesn't
so,
have like a game license code you had to plug in and then it's useless without it. Yeah, I think that was Stealth 40K that I saw making that. He usually has takes like that on socials.
yeah. So like that's nice, but
Yeah.
it's still not ideal.
Yeah, it's preferable to a download code, but it is still not a true. It doesn't have all the benefits like a physical copy would normally have. And then one last note, real quick, on game carts. Unlike the DS to 3DS, where we saw a redesign in carts, the Switch 2 carts are physically the same shape as Switch 1 carts. The big difference is that they are now red instead of black. Which my only stupid joke to add on to this is I wonder if they're spicy now instead of bitter.
I'm really happy about the red cart and the red cases. The box art thing, like,
it sucks
yeah,
for those.
it's not.
It sucks for one other situation too. We'll talk about in a bit, but the other ones
Yeah,
are solid.
It's not ideal with the big red bar on top. But I'm also like, I wasn't really super crazy about the Switch box arts either. Like the way that they styled those as well. So I actually really like how Japan did it, where it had like the bar on top, and then like it had the logo in like in what's the word I'm looking for? In collaboration with like the actual box art itself.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that. I think that's Japan that did it. Anyway, and so this is like, I'm gonna get over it, but I like the red cases. I like the red carts. Nintendo in the past did a few red carts for specific Mario games. I believe they did it for like a lot of the Mario and Luigi games on the 3DS. I believe they did it for Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS. And so the fact that they're doing that just in general, I'm pretty happy with. I like that.
Yeah, I like it. Black carts get boring. Like, I think red's nice. I also just associate red as like the color for Nintendo, right? I mean, that's obviously their main
100%.
branding color, especially like definitely since the Switch era. Like, they were a little more kind of like light blue and white during Wii and Wii U, but red is definitely the look now. Okay, we have just a few more things to talk about on a system level. Kind of just like a little miscellaneous wrap up of some little things worth noting. They talked about how this is going to have better built-in speakers. Who knows? That's not like, you just can't, like, they say that's great, but I just don't know what that means until I actually am hearing it for myself. The kickstand, they referred to it as sturdy. It looks good. It's not the same exact design as what they did with the OLED, but it has that U-shaped design. I like it. It certainly looks better than the original Switch kickstand, so that's welcome. The dock this time around has a fan built into it, probably because, again, more powerful system, producing more heat. It's probably going to get nice and warm in handheld mode, and the power required to go through docked mode needs to be counterbalanced a bit. Also related to this real quick, because we've found out pricing for some accessories, the dock is now $110, which that's a lot of money for a dock. 3D audio support for headphones. We've been seeing this happen in a lot of the other like mainline consoles. PlayStation's pushed it a lot, so it's cool to see that happen here if you're using headphones with the system. Like we saw in previous reveals, it does have that top USB-C port now, the purpose of which is either an alternative way to charge the system, like if you're using it in tabletop mode and you want to be able to plug it into power, or to use with certain accessories like the camera. And then we do also have a new Pro controller announced for the system. This has also had a slight price increase. It's going to be $80. It looks 90% the same as the current Pro controller. The big differences are it now has the C button, so you can use those chat features. And something I'm personally hype about, because I was yelling about this in videos way back when, we now have a first-party regular OEM controller that has back buttons. This isn't like a priced up expensive elite thing. You just have a regular Switch Pro controller now that has back buttons that are called GR and GL. You can remap them to what you like. Fantastic. Love to see it.
Yeah, I love the Pro controller. It is definitely one of the best controllers, and I know that a lot of people have been waiting for something like this, where like, hey, the standard control, like, it's called the Pro controller, but this is basically the standard Switch controller, and
it's
it
Pro
has
in that you're not using Joy-Cons.
Yeah, and I'm not a person that use back buttons, back paddles. I've never really felt the need to use them, but like for those that care about that, like I think that is a huge win for them, and I'm very happy.
Yeah, I absolutely found enough cases in like specific games where it's very nice to have the option. Anything first-person view can be really handy, and then actually one of the genres I use it the most in is Souls-likes, just because having an option to like map the sprint button so I can keep my finger on the camera controls at the same time. Oh, so useful. Did we rant about UI? I forget. Did we cover that?
No. Oh,
Okay.
let's open that can of worms.
Oh yeah, so this was not part of the direct. This was something that came out after. We saw a still frame of the home screen, and it is the goddamn same. It's not the same. It's very close. It's so similar.
It's so similar.
Yeah, like imagine take the Switch home screen, make the squares a little smaller, and then add a bottom bar for all your auxiliary extra options, like opening up chat controls and settings and all that kind of stuff. Look, that seems like an upgrade to what we have currently, but it's just not what I was hoping to see. Like, I was really hoping Nintendo would give a nice UI refresh, something a little bit more personality, a little more dynamic. Technically, this doesn't mean we can't see things like themes happening still, which is something I hope to see happen, but it's not a great sign for it. It is, at least the stock-based design is very similar to the current Switch.
Yeah. It's one of the most disappointing things that came out of this presentation. Listen, I don't think the Switch UI is bad. I just think that it is just boring.
Yes.
We talked about this last episode, and so it being like the same thing, but there's more buttons on the bars where it's just like you go to your gallery, you go to your settings, all that stuff. And then the circle, the outline circle is now rainbow instead of blue. It's just like, come on, guys, this is different. It's really disappointing. And listen, I get that it is a sequel to a console that, in a way that Nintendo, it's not surprising. Just like when you look at the Wii U, right, and how the Wii U is
it's just disappointing.
So similar. It's really disappointing. But one of the things that we also kind of talked about, but also didn't dig deep on that I realized when you were talking about the UI are the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of games.
Yep.
And how the box art for that, I don't mind that whole aspect, but the box arts for that in particular is horrific.
Yeah,
horrifically bad.
I was going to bring that up when we went a little more in depth on what games are getting Switch 2 edition upgrades, but basically similar to the Game Key games, there are going to be games that are Switch 2 edition upgrade titles. And it doesn't matter if it's like a game that's already released or it's a future title that's coming out on both Switch 1 and 2. They are now all going to have this giant, ugly paragraph at the bottom of the case art that's like, oh, this includes the regular game along with the Switch 2 edition upgrade features and blah blah blah. It's just a whole disclaimer that like I understand why it exists. I don't understand why that couldn't have been on like the back of the box.
The back of the box. The back of the box.
Just put it on the back of the box. Like, why do you have to put this right on the front? Like, people can flip a box. It's not hard.
And it's like, why do you have to put Nintendo Switch 2 edition when you have the Nintendo Switch 2 logo on the box, on the front? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things like at the very least, out of all of the bullshit, it's all on the cart, right? Like, there's no like game key card BS on these games. And I hate it, but yeah, I'm going to buy these versions of these games. Like, I am. Like, I'm going to sell my copy of Breath of the Wild. I'm going to sell my copy of Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to sell my copy of, well, I didn't buy a copy of Jamboree, but like, I'm going to sell these copies so that I can get these new updated these versions because like, you know, it's such a massive jump. But boy, howdy, why did y'all do this?
Which, by the way, it's so freaking wild. Like, we're basically transitioning over to talk about Switch 2 edition upgrades at this point, but it's so wild that because Nintendo games have held their value for so long, and the way these upgrades work is by charging a little bit more money, that like Breath of the Wild, a launch title for the Switch, you know, stayed $60 the whole time, and now if you want to play it on Switch 2, you need to spend $70. It not only retained its price, it went up.
Yeah,
along with a bunch of other games that are now more expensive as well, which we'll do a breakdown of that in a moment. But yeah, freaking wild.
I also want to say that just in general, it is shocking that they just announced both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom from Go. I definitely thought we were going to get Breath of the Wild, but getting Tears of the Kingdom as well, considering how recent that game is, I was kind of surprised by it.
Yeah, but they're like essentially the same game on like a visual level, right? Like, I mean, like there's all the extra fancy like physics and stuff that Tears of the Kingdom can do, but like Tears of the Kingdom started as DLC for Breath of the Wild, you know, pitch wise at least. So like it makes sense that like if they're gonna have just like straight visual upgrades, along with one other thing we'll talk about in a second, it makes sense to me to just do it back to back.
Now, one question before you do dive into like what those upgrades include.
Mm-hmm.
Are there release dates for those? Like, I know we didn't get one for Metroid Prime 4, but like,
I believe the assumption is they are all launch day unless the game is not coming out launch day. So like Metroid Prime 4, we don't know because we don't know when Metroid Prime 4 is coming out.
Which is crazy, by the way.
Huh? Oh yeah, which is crazy. I mean, that's just who knows when it's releasing at this point? Definitely not a launch day title at this point. And what was the other upcoming game that's getting an upgrade like that? Oh, Pokemon Legends ZA, which we also don't know what the release date is. But for Legend of Zelda and Kirby and all the other ones that are already out, I believe that's going to be launch day. I don't know if they made that super clear. But
they did not.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case, I guess. Okay. So, speaking of what Switch Edition 2 upgrades are. So, you know, we've already kind of covered the basic idea of this a little bit. Let's just start talking about games in general, and we'll start with Switch 2 Edition upgrades. Basically, there are going to be games that are cross-gen. They have a Switch 1 version. They're getting a Switch 2 version. And they all have this very clear labeling that they are Switch 2 Edition titles. We currently know of 6 that are getting this treatment. 2 have yet to release. The 2 that are upcoming still are Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA. Previous release titles include both Legend of Zelda titles, Mario Party Jamboree, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Forgotten Land? Forgotten Kingdom. My brain does this mix up every time.
Forgotten Land.
Forgotten Land. Okay, cool. I was right in the first try. And all of these games have cool Switch 2 specific upgrades that make them better. It looks, based on pricing that we're seeing right now, that Nintendo is choosing how to price these games based on what exactly is being added to them. For instance, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, along with Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA, are all purely performance upgrades. There's a couple little extra things for Zelda that's special, but like the main thing is they look prettier, they run better, cool, awesome. Metroid Prime will let you use the mouse style controls, so they're going to charge you $10 more compared to the regular Switch 1 version. If there's new content added that's exclusive to them, they're going to be $20 more. So the main examples for this would be Mario Party Jamboree, where there's going to be all kinds of new mini games that leverage Switch 2 specific functions, like the built-in microphone or the mouse style controls. There's a whole Bowser specific mode where you use the camera if you buy that, and you can put yourself in the game and do all kinds of silly stuff. They're going to charge you an extra $20 instead of 10 because it has that content. And Kirby as well has all new story content that just expands the game further. So that's another one that's getting priced up a little higher. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land, if you want to buy that brand new for Switch 2, is an $80 game. Because it's the base 60 plus an extra 20.
Yeah. Nintendo's gonna Nintendo.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
money.
It's one of those things, like, it's not surprising in the slightest. They're gonna do what they gotta do. Like, I think that maybe if what was happening in world politics right now wasn't happening, maybe $60. Maybe they would have been able to. They would have justify, cut $20 off of it. But this isn't surprising. It's obviously disappointing, but
yeah,
it just kind of is what it is. Nintendo can just kind of do what they want, and that's just like how it's gonna be. Please continue. I do have a list of release dates for those titles once you're done.
Oh, cool. So they are not launch day then. They do have specific dates?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, a couple quick things to add on real quick. Aside from visual and performance updates or new content, there are a couple special specific things worth calling attention to. Metroid Prime 4 is getting those mouse controls. It's also getting graphic setting options specifically, so you can do prioritize frame rate or prioritize resolution. So basically, the frame rate option is going to give you 120 FPS in handheld or docked, at the expense of not being the peak resolution it could be, while quality mode is going to make sure you're getting 4K in docked, 1080p in handheld. It's also getting the mouse style controls again. Pokemon Legends EA, nothing special, just a visual update, but I just want to highlight how much better it looks. Like, I just have not liked what I've seen of Pokemon Legends EA so far, and immediately what we saw at this presentation looked better to me. And then Zelda, interestingly enough, they've announced not a new companion app, it's a feature as part of the Switch app, but it's a second screen functionality where you can tie it into your game and do things like get a nav system that tells you how to get somewhere that you've marked on your map, along with other things, like apparently there's going to be bonus memories that are purely audio. Yeah, I really love how Nintendo found a way to basically do Connect and second screen functionality again, and like in 2025. Like, these are things that like Xbox experimented with in like the mid 2010s, and here we are.
Yeah, I do want to say, like, I'm super happy about this feature that they're doing with the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom
it's neat.
Versions, because I've said on the podcast before, I'm not a huge fan of Breath of the Wild, and I still need to finish that game, and I think this factor will like help play a part. Like, I understand that people really loved it for it's just kind of like figuring out how to get to places, like kind of using the stamina bar and things like that. That stuff did not speak to me. I found that stuff more annoying than enjoyable. And so like having this kind of navigation system to better that experience for me is something I'm really excited about. Especially, but Tears of the Kingdom, I love that game. I think that game's really, really great, and I need to get back to it. So just both these games getting these updated re-releases with better visuals, which I think both these games were really, really good looking beforehand for the Switch. But this is just like, yeah, I can't wait to hop back into these games. Probably, hopefully, finally finish Breath of the Wild, and also just see Tears of the Kingdom through, because I stopped playing that game for no particular reason, but I really enjoyed my time with it, and I want to finish it.
Yeah. One last thing I want to highlight, because this is another interesting weird thing about this. It's called Zelda Notes, by the way. This feature is part of Switch app. Something else it's adding to Zelda, and this is apparently not a Switch 2 system level thing, but it is part of the Switch app. Achievements. They are adding achievements to these games, but they exist specifically within Zelda Note. So like, it doesn't sound like achievements are coming to Switch 2 in general, but maybe some select games are going to get it and show it off in the Switch app specifically. So you can track earning certain achievements. You can also track certain game time things, like how many weapons you've collected and that kind of thing, to compare to your friends. Yeah, super weird. Something that is exclusive apparently to the app and not a Switch 2 level specific thing. But if you love achievements, they now kind of exist for both those games.
Cool.
And then release dates. You said you got those.
Yes. So the following games are going to be released at launch on June 5th. Um, I'm just going to read it down the line. I'm
Yeah,
not
go
trying to
for it.
like prioritize anything.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 6, Mario Kart World, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, Bravely Default, Flying Fairy HD Remaster. And then the following games, I'm just going to say that's left and what their dates are. I'm not going in timeline order. Donkey Kong Bonanza, July 17th. We already knew that. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, August 28th.
Oh, wow. Pretty far out.
And then Super Mario Party Jamboree will be July 24th.
Okay. Interesting. Which does give us a preview about some of the games we'll be talking about in a bit. One last thing I want to highlight for the Edition 2 stuff. I've seen a little bit of misreporting of this back and forth. Some people are saying this applies to all games, and it doesn't. Some games will offer free Edition 2 upgrades as part of Nintendo Switch Online. The only games offering that right now that we know of are the 2 Zelda titles. It has not been confirmed for anything else yet. So as far as we know, you still need to pay upgrades for other ones. But the Zelda titles specifically will be part of Nintendo Switch Online.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the other list of games, maybe that I'm thinking of that are confirmed to be getting Switch 2 updates. Like nothing, like not
yes,
not big ones like this, but like just normal free updates.
Yes, I was going to get to that in a little bit, but that is
another
thing
okay.
too. Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, we might as well talk about it real quick. So yes, we are getting these upgrades that you have to pay for, but we also know about a bunch of games that are just going to get free updates for Switch 2 specifically. So they're probably not going to have as drastic of improvements, but you might have a situation where, you know, the game was capped at 30 on the Switch and now it's capped at 60 or is running uncapped on the Switch 2. Maybe there's like restricting a resolution thing that was there before. So if it only ran, 540p in handheld, it's now hitting 1080 in handheld mode, whatever. But not like whole redone versions of games. The list we have for that, I have somewhere. Where did I put that? Okay. The list of games getting these free updates, and there could be more in the future, but these are the only ones we know of for now, are ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games, Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, Game Builder Garage, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, finally, thankfully, might be actual runnable games, and Big Brain Academy, Brain versus Brain.
Yeah, that's a solid list that I'm really happy about because a lot of those games I have not played yet that I very much would like to. Like when Scarvi came out, I've talked about it before. People are saying like, "Oof, this game does not run well." I'm like, "Cool, I'll wait until they fix it if they fix it."
Yeah.
And
I
then
definitely think it's like the number one here for a lot of people.
Yes,
to be like,
100%.
it might actually be like good.
Yeah. And then Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom are games I need to get to. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is a game I want to get to. Getting a Odyssey upgrade. Odyssey was probably like the one game that I was kind of surprised didn't get the bigger upgrade style. But I also kind of understand because I just don't really know what they would add to that game in a way that
HDR support
makes sense.
Baby, like that, like, and who knows, maybe that's still part of the Switch 2 patch, but it's not going to be as drastic as what Zelda got for sure.
But there are also games that are notably missing. Like I've talked about before, Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yep. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, definitely.
For me, that is, here's the thing. They could totally announce in the future that there are going to be more updates, right?
Yes.
There was the whole like found 60 FPS thing for Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yep.
Xenoblade Chronicles X was not announced. And they probably didn't announce it because they want people to keep buying the Switch version that just came out. Yeah. So, but like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 not getting like that desperately needs an update. So either one, that's happening in the future, or two, they're going to do a definitive edition and it's going to like release like a normal release on Switch 2. I would prefer the latter.
Both
I
would
would
be cool.
but either would be great.
Yeah.
Either would be great. So yeah. But solid list to start off for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I would say I generally agree with you, which was with the games I'm more excited for. Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom. Not that they like ran poorly, but they definitely had some frame drop issues when it came to changing screens. So seeing that fixed, and maybe even getting like a little bit of res bump stuff, awesome. I will say another series that I hope to see get added to this over time. All the Koei Tecmo Warrior game crossovers, because aside from Hyrule Warriors Legends,
Yes.
which was a Wii U game originally, a lot of them have performance issues. Like I enjoyed
Yes.
them and I played through them, but like Age of Calamity near the end, boy does it get rough. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes generally wasn't terrible, but it would like bungee jump sometimes frame rate wise. Like if you looked in a corner, it'd be like a nice smooth 60 for a moment, and then you turn around and suddenly you see that frame rate drop down to like 28. Yeah, I would love to see all those Warrior crossovers run better.
And see, that's one of the reasons why I really I eventually will finish Three Houses because I want to play Three Hopes. And I know that you don't have to play Three Houses to play Three Hopes, but like I want to know like the story here,
Yeah.
so I can compare to the story here.
Yes,
if that makes
I
sense.
agree. I agree the idea that you don't have to, but I would heavily advise it. Like if someone just didn't want to play Fire Emblem for whatever reason and they wanted to check out a Fire Emblem Warrior spinoff, sure, like go ahead. But like I definitely recommend playing Houses first if that's an option.
Yeah, and Age of Calamity was like even though I've talked about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and it might be because they announced the we'll talk about it, but they announced the new Hyrule Warriors, my immediate game was just like, oh, Age of Calamity, that needs an update, that needs a patch. So yeah, I hope that gets announced in the future as well.
Yeah. Next up, taking a break from traditional game releases, I want to talk about GameCube coming to Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. This is something that sounds like it's going to be exclusive to Switch 2, and it is a launch day thing. So like as soon as the Switch 2 comes out, this is going to be a part of it. We only know there's only going to be 3 games at launch, but we do have a list of other titles that are going to be coming up as well. And honestly, I feel like, I don't get me wrong, I kind of wish there was more than 3. Like more is always better, but I feel like the 3 they picked were like a solid 3. We are getting Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which may now confirm that we're not getting those HD remasters because you can just play it on GameCube. That's a whole other conversation. We'll find out. Soul Calibur 2, which I'm super hyped about because those of you that don't know your history, the cool thing about Soul Calibur 2 is that each platform had a different, unique character. And for GameCube, it was Link, which is fantastic. He was so fun to play. They even re-released Soul Calibur 2 on other platforms, and they had the other system-specific characters grouped together. Link was the exception. He was not in that version of the game. There's been no other way to play as him except own the GameCube copy. So that coming to Nintendo Switch Online, super freaking cool. And then, well, we're probably not going to see a brand new game anytime soon. F-Zero GX is playable on GameCube for Nintendo Switch Online. So, I wish we had more than 3 right away, but I feel like that's a pretty solid 3 to choose just in terms of like filling some gaps. And then the list of upcoming titles, there's a couple things missing that I would love to see, but still some great stuff confirmed. Super Mario Sunshine, the one that I know you're going to freak out about, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
Let's go, baby!
Oh yeah, I love how you clipped your mic to where I could not hear that "let's go."
Sorry.
No, you're good. I heard the second one. The first one, gone. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, Chibi Robo, the original Luigi's Mansion, so that explains why we never got that ported. And Pokemon Colosseum. Pretty good lineup. A couple things missing. There's a few things I want to see added. But pretty good lineup.
Absolutely. I think it's absolutely stacked. Like absolutely stacked lineup. We also got like some polls that like totally could happen, but didn't expect to like just happen or be announced so soon, like Chibi Robo, right? Like that's definitely a left field one. Obviously, there's some missing. Smash, Double Dash. Would really love to see Super Mario Sluggers. Would love to see some baseball come back. But man, that is a killer lineup. It doesn't completely resolve my personal issue of like wanting to get a GameCube, and like there's certain games that just haven't been ported or and probably never will be, to be able to access and play in 2025. But like for first party, it's really, really great. But it does open up a kind of a bigger conversation of like, there's like this kind of level of tornness, right? Where you're talking about like, oh yeah, because Wind Waker's coming to this virtual console, we're probably not going to get that or Twilight Princess ported.
Yep.
But do I, and like, at this point, probably not getting a Path of Radiance or a Radiant Dawn port. But would I rather have that, or would I rather have what we got, where we are getting games that there was zero shot of getting ported or like ported to main consoles, like Pokemon Coliseum, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. Like, I do not think that those games would get a re-release in any shape or form from a like remaster level. And so like, does it suck that we're probably not going to get a remaster of Path of Radiance and like the ports of Wind Waker and like Twilight Princess and maybe some other GameCube titles? Absolutely. But I think that at the end of the day, this was the better call to make.
Yeah. And I agree it hurts their chances, but it does not 100% rule them out. Especially if, I think it's tough.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and I think it's tough for the remasters, but I don't think it rules out situations where maybe there's a heavier remake process going on. Like if they wanted to do like a Fire Emblem Radiant duology, and it's like they're both like redone and kind of brought more in line with modern games, like that's still a possibility. Like we've seen that happen. Like Link's Awakening, you can play the Game Boy version, but we also have the very pretty redone version.
Yeah. I don't think it it makes it impossible. I just think it lowers lowers the possibility.
Yes.
But again, like, would I rather have this lowered possibility for these games that could have gotten a remaster that like makes sense, in sacrifice of games that I know would not get ported, like the Pokemon GameCube games, Chibi Robo probably, like Super Mario Strikers. Like, no, I would rather like take the L on on the remaster side to be able to play all these other games, even if they're not like in a remastered form.
Yeah. Just to shout out some personal choices of mine that I would love to see added that we don't have on here yet. One outside choice and one I think is a little more believable. Outside choice, Skies of Arcadia. Like,
yeah, not gonna happen.
That just needs to, like, unless Sega is working on their own remaster or whatever, which we talked about, there's been rumors of and that kind of thing. Like, unless Sega has their own plans, if there's no other way this game's coming back, would love to see it happen here. And then Eternal Darkness. I'm a little surprised that one's not on here. I think that's such an interesting, like, good GameCube game that just, like, I would love to see that come back here. I am curious what the pacing is for these leftover games. Like, is this going to fill out the first year? Are we catching up to this list in 6 months? Like, what does that actually look like? Which we won't know until it happens.
Yeah, that's fair. How are we feeling about Twin Snakes? You think that there's a possibility for that?
I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I would not think it likely. Unless.
Is Eternal Darkness Nintendo published?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It was Silicon Knights, and it was published by Nintendo.
Okay. Yeah. So I was asking that mainly because I did not know that Eternal Darkness was first party published.
It's one of those games where a lot of people kind of assume that, because it's like, how could that be? And it was. That was a first party published game. It's not like from an internal studio, I think, technically. Is Silicon Knights? No, they weren't internal.
But also, like, we didn't think about this too, like, at the very least, Metroid Prime 2. Hopefully.
Yeah, and that opens the door too to, like, how far away is Wii on NSO, because the Wii is just a GameCube with motion controls. Like, it's not a wholly different system. So if it can run GameCube, it can run Wii. There might be a problem with, like, how, adapting Joy-Cons to the motion controls work. But there are games that had regular Pro Controller input too as an option, so who knows?
Yeah. I would love that was like one of the things that, kind of put a not put a bad taste in my mouth, like as like I expected, but just like I hoped that they would have done all 3 Prime games before 4.
Yeah,
And
weird.
the fact they only did 1, I'm just like, I would really like it to play. I would like to play all 3, please.
Yeah, that does feel very awkward. And then one last piece on GameCube. Similar to past systems coming to Switch Online, we are also getting a tied-in controller. It is a GameCube controller with the regular number of GameCube buttons. The one exception being it does have the new C button, I think on the top of the controller instead of on the front. I think to keep like the classic look on the front facing. But it just has the one Z button. It doesn't do like the double like some later adaptations have added in. So yeah, classic GameCube controller. Will sell out like hotcakes, I'm sure.
I am so fucking excited. Like that is 100% something I'm buying day one with my Switch 2.
If you're able to get in, that's going to be something that I'm sure is going to be a bit of a mess ordering on launch day.
I got the N64 straight away. I mean, like, granted, it's not like
the N64 is also quite a bit less popular. I mean, not as a system, but a controller style type.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm also like, I just think it's cool that Nintendo has like continued to like just remake these controllers. And like, yeah, they're wireless, but they're basically like they come across like exactly the same as like the originals.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just think that's a really cool thing that they keep doing. And like, again, for me, the GameCube is my favorite controller.
Oh, it's a great controller.
Ever. And so specifically the Wavebird. Yeah. But like, so getting this again in 2025 makes me really happy, and I honestly just wish that there were more games that I could use that controller on the Switch 2.
Yeah. I will say, as much as it makes to go full wireless and recreate the look and design of controller, there's a small part of me that's like, Nintendo, you cowards, you should have kept adding a rail every single time. Give me a bizarre monstrosity. Because the NES and SNES had those, and they stopped. It would be way too weird to try and fit a rail to connect directly. Next up. So we basically have 2 categories of games left, and I want to kind of lightning around through this one a little bit. We can spend a little more time on some specific ones, but ports, and more ports. There were a lot of ports announced as part of this direct. Either games that have already been out for a while on past systems, or are upcoming, and we knew they were coming to other platforms, but now we know Switch 2 is amongst that list. Again, there were a lot, but a couple that I just want to kind of shout out real quick personally, and if I'm missing any that you were excited by, we'll talk about. Cyberpunk 2077, like we mentioned earlier, it's on the larger cart. I believe it's a complete version of the game, so you're getting the DLC and everything right off the bat. That's correct. Cool. It's also adding things like gyro controls, and I think touchscreen for some stuff too. Super neat. Elden Ring, that's another one where it looks like we're getting DLC rolled in. And apparently, I'm trying to find a source on this. I've seen some people claim that version's also getting some bonus items in game, maybe armor that's themed off of some Nintendo properties. But all I've seen confirmed is the having Shadow of Erdtree included. Split Fiction, Borderlands 4, Civ 7, Hades 2, Street Fighter 6, which we are getting Amiibo for. We just have seen the 3 that are going to be available at launch, which are basically like the 3 main characters for 6, which are my brain is blanking right now.
Luke, Jamie,
and
Kimberly.
Yes, thank you. FF7 Remake is coming to Switch. This is something that's been like rumored for a long time, so it makes sense. Kunitsugami, not a previously released game, but Hollow Knight Silksong did show up for all of 4 seconds, saying 2025, and I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not one of the people that's angry about this, but I am just kind of like, sure, it's a game that exists, and I'm not going to think about it too much until it's actually in my hands. And then one of the kind of weirder ones for me, I mean, not that it's happening, but what they're doing with it, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. It's a re-release of the game that they said adds new cutscenes, which I don't know what the context for those cutscenes is, if they're just filling out some plot bits a little more or something, because it wasn't like new plot, it was just new cutscenes was the specific wording they used, which is interesting. And then not announced at the direct, but something we've learned about after, is that it's also getting a multiplayer mode, which interesting. Yeah. It was in the trailer for 2 seconds. We'll see. And then a funny one to me, Hitman World of Assassination is coming to the Switch too, and as part of that, there is pre-order bonus DLC where you get Mario and Luigi costumes that are not like full-blown Mario and Luigi, but it's basically Agent 47 like all in red or all in green, and he has a mustache. It's silly.
Yeah. So Yakuza 0 Director's Cut specifically is interesting because not only is it added cutscenes, they're adding English voiceover.
Yes.
And there's also going to be subtitles for French, Italian, German, and Spanish. We don't know any of the casting regarding that.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a couple we can like guess based on past performances.
yeah, like
Who
Matt
knows?
Mercer will probably be Majima. We don't really know about Kiryu because Yang Ye was the voice for Kiryu in
8 and Man Who Erased
Infinite Wealth, and was what?
Man Who Erased His Name.
Oh, he's the man who erased his name too. Yeah, and I feel like I'm not trying to open a can of worms here, but I feel like that there was some criticism behind that decision. It felt like a bit of a miscast. So I don't know if Yang Ye is going to be the voice moving forward, or if they're going to recast, or they're going to go back to the original voice actor. I'm not sure about that, but I'm curious about that. And I guess like my big thing is just why. You know what I mean? Like why are we going back to Yakuza 0?
Because it's
why not?
Zero?
Like I just feel like I would have rather they go back to Like a Dragon, do the updated combat stuff with Like a Dragon, add some new stuff if needed or whatever, and then go from there.
That feels like a bigger endeavor to me. Because like a Dragon is a
bigger
much
endeavor.
larger game.
100%.
But I don't think it's an impossibility. Like I could totally see them doing that down the line. But especially because right now the only Switch Yakuza game is what? Yakuza 1, which just dropped
Yes.
like late last year when the show was coming out.
Yes.
I think if they're trying to build out from what's already there, 0 makes more sense. And it's,
but
it's less investment.
It is a Switch 2 exclusive. But I also think that it is eventually going to come to other consoles.
Yes, I agree.
And so for me, it's just like I kind of wish you did something that was more like ultimately beneficial for all systems, not just the Switch 2. And I think that again, the Like a Dragon, just like updating the combat to match Infinite Wealth, and then like adding some new stuff, which I really don't even need, and then just like putting a new like subtitle on there, I would have been more I would have been more excited for something like that. Like
sure.
this
I'd like
is cool.
to highlight part of your stances of this is that I do know you're a Yakuza 0 hater.
I'm not a hater. I just don't love it as much as other people, to the point where I was just gonna say like this is not a day one purchase for me. This is not something that like, oh, I know it is for you.
Oh yeah.
But like
no
for me, it's just like I don't need this. And so that's kind of my thing. Like, will I buy it eventually? 100%. Will I play it eventually? Maybe, like probably. But it's just not a like, oh, I gotta play this like immediately. Because like also with the new cutscenes, like, what are we adding to Kiryu's story here? What are we at?
That's a huge question, right? Like, what is happening? Like, is there more plot out? Do we get like extra epilogue or something? Like, I don't know. Like, it just who knows what any of that means?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying it in a way of like, what could you possibly add?
Yeah,
like in a like, what is the point type situation? Like,
I got my conspiracy theories that are baseless entirely.
I'm being pessimistic about this for sure. But yeah, so that's how I feel about it, and it is confirmed to release. It is a launch title.
Yep. To add, like, to balance out all the wild speculation you brought to our Switch 2 discussion last week, my wild baseless speculation for this that is not for anything. This is definitely not happening, but I just want to throw this out. As we've discussed before, I think there is legitimately a possibility of something like a Yakuza 0 2, where we have something that takes place between 0 and 1, and additional cutscenes could absolutely be a way of adding the seeds of what that game could be. That's my unhinged, completely baseless idea, but I'm verbalizing it now so it is recorded and dated for if that happens.
and you still think that's going to be like, that would be a game that focuses on Nishiki?
That is like one of my proposed ideas for it. Yeah, like I think like that to me would be an interesting thing, especially because again, Nishiki's voice actor did kind of allude to like, oh yeah, it would be cool to play Nishiki again, and I think we could really draw some interesting parallels between him and Ichiban, and it's a whole, yeah, that's my crazy conspiracy theory.
Okay. Listen, I want you to be right.
Yeah, I know you love Nishiki.
Yeah, I'm a Nishiki guy. Nishiki is my boy, but I also like don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
but I would love to be proven wrong.
No, I like look, I'm usually the one to try and talk back that kind of stuff, and like I'm even doing that to myself where I'm like, oh, this is stupid. This isn't happening. But you know what? I want it out there. That way I can point back to clips later and be like, I knew what I was talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. All right. Finally, new games. I figure this is easy just to kind of like work. We'll do this in order of when they were revealed because obviously we want to spend a little bit more time on each of these games individually. The first brand new game that we already knew about, but now we actually like know about, Mario Kart World. This was the opening reveal for the show. We got to see like a trailer right away. That was the cold open, and then they kind of dove back in to give a little more context to what we saw. Guys, this game looks incredible. Like I realize there's already a little controversy about it being like the $80 game, that it's costing more than a regular MSRP title. And like I get that. I understand where like that fear, worry, and frustration comes from. But this game looks cool as shit. Like I'm so excited for this. The main kind of premise going on with this one is that they're effectively adding a open world element akin to something like Forza Horizon, where like, yeah, there's courses and stages you play through, but they're all a part of a larger world that you can also just freely drive around if you want. There's an actual logic to like why you do certain stages in order because they're connecting to each other on the overworld map. The roster looks huge. Like we haven't even seen like outside Mario traditional characters, and we're getting a ton of like really random specific picks. The cow, the penguin, Hammer Bros. Like there's so many wild roster choices we're seeing, and costumes, different designs for characters you can pick between. They've highlighted a couple. We saw a few Mario. We saw a bunch of Peach. I think they showed like 5 different Peach outfits. Yeah, this game looks super fucking cool. How are you feeling on it, Cam?
Yeah, the game looks it looks massive. It was like the first game that's like, hey, this is an $80 game, and like I can understand it. Like I know a lot of people aren't happy about it, but I can understand it. It looks like a really big game where they're adding a whole lot of stuff. I'm super happy it's not called Mario Kart 10 or Mario Kart Cross or X or something like that. Granted, Mario Kart World is a little boring, but better than something like that. I do think the roster of characters is interesting. I actually really love that the cow is in it because it's always kind of been like that Mario Kart meme of just like, oh, the Moo Moo Meadows cow.
Yep.
So like just the fact of Nintendo like kind of recognizing that, like we're gonna put him in the game. I like that. But then there are like some other creatures. I'm just like, why are you in a roster spot in this game? Like I don't know the names of the characters, but like the bat and like the bee and like the crab. It's like,
yeah,
really? Like I felt like that this was the opportunity of like them implementing more Nintendo characters from the get-go.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're not doing that is like just really weird to me. And then are now like instead introducing these really niche Mario characters or like races, species, whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
Again, like some make sense to me. Like I forgot what their name, but like the characters from like Sunshine, like the hula character.
Oh yeah,
and like
Sunshine is one I don't really have as much experience with. I didn't care for it as much, so that one's like a blank spot in my brain right now.
But like that has been in other Mario games. Like that has been in like Mario's Super like Sluggers and like things like that. That I get that. I get Monty Mole. Like he's been in other games. I get that. But some of
Piantas,
these
by the
other,
way, are the name of
what was
the
it called?
sunshine. Piantas.
Piantas. Okay. Yeah, like so, but then some of these are just like just so random, and I just wish that that wasn't the case. Like, the Goomba's in it for the first time. And like, granted, he can't like drive, but he doesn't have
Oh,
arms.
pedal control.
But
It's
like,
lean. He's fine. He's fine. He's
yeah,
got this.
but it's the Goomba. Like that makes sense. And so it is one of those things where it is what it is, I guess. I wish that they decided to do more like Nintendo outside of Mario and Nintendo and do like Nintendo stuff, but um ultimately, who am I to say this? I'm basic. I use Mario or Baby Mario, like Baby Mario ideally.
I'm a shy guy
I'm
man
not.
myself, so I'm happy.
Yeah, so it's just like I'm kind of complaining for no reason, but I just wish that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I will say I think like I do agree that like because I mean we talked about this before and this is a thing I've been saying for years. Like I was saying this back when we were like thinking we'd get another Mario Kart before the 8 Deluxe DLC was announced. Yeah, I think it would have been cooler to have some more Nintendo roster right off the bat that isn't traditional Mario, especially when we're getting to this size of a roster. That said, this doesn't exclude the possibility of that being like DLC packs in the future. Later support for this game. Nintendo has done DLC for these titles before, so like I don't think that they would stop with this one. It might not be like immediate, where 6 months from now we get some character drops, but I think there is absolutely the potential for down the line to see that expansion come back. But it absolutely would have been cooler to see right out the gate.
Yeah.
And then I realized we like went off right away on like how cool the world stuff is and like the roster. Another thing too, racing in this looks really interesting. Like there is some brand new mechanical stuff we were seeing, like grinding on rails. We were seeing wall jumps where you like jump between walls back and forth to build up height. Uh, really interesting stuff. Like this feels like a more different Mario Kart to me at its core level, which I'm thankful for because I feel
Yeah.
like Mario Kart's been pretty stagnant.
Yeah, grind on rails. They took from Sonic Riders. Um, but yeah, there's some interesting things. I'm curious as to like how they are implementing the wall riding and
Oh
things like
yeah,
that because they don't have like the gravity stuff that 8 had. So it's just like, are y'all just kind of just ignoring that? It's just like, oh, we have the technology now, or we're just gonna you hit the wall and it's just like it just uh moves vertically, moves the
sure.
perspective. Like, sure, well, that's fine. Like that's I'm totally okay with that. Um, but yeah, the races look cool. I do like the knockout tour where it's just like you kind of go onto these like these really long tracks, and like when there's certain checkpoints where if you're not in this place at least you are eliminated. That's cool, especially with the being 24 racers in a game now, or in a race now. Um, what are your thoughts on the free roam stuff
I think it's cool.
from what you saw?
I mean, from what I saw, like, I mean, it looks neat. It's very interesting how they've definitely divided the world into like, it's basically like there's hard line definitions between going between different realms where suddenly you're in Bowser Lava Land, and then there's, the more kind of like upbeat grassy areas. Uh, I have no complaints based on what we saw. Is there something about it that you're kind of feeling a little weird about, or?
It's just I just don't care about it.
Hmm.
It's just
I
like
guess
not what I
I just
want in the
flash
Mario
back
Kart
to what
game.
it's like to play. I just flash back to like because I don't care about like racing sims that much, but like the one slightly more realistic racer I enjoy, which is definitely arcadey at its roots, is Forza Horizon, which this is what it reminds me
Oh
of.
yeah,
And I love driving around in Forza Horizon. Like I like just the simple act of like traveling and going around places. Like it feels good. And I would not be surprised if Nintendo gamified that a little more, right? Like Forza has
Mhm.
stuff like finding cars and doing certain things in areas just to like test your drifting skills or whatever. I feel like Nintendo could add some ways of gamifying the open world aspect that isn't just like, yeah, man, drive around, take some screenshots, whatever.
Yeah. Like I get it. I understand. Like they definitely took inspiration from Forza Horizon. And that's a great racing series. It's just like not what I want from a racing game. And
Mhm.
so like it's cool for those that care. Even with Mario Kart 8, I I have not played a lot of that game. Um, it's and I like it. I just haven't taken the time to really play it. And so like for me, even though like yeah, I plan on buying Mario Kart World, I don't see myself playing that game very often unless people are like, "Hey, let's play some Mario Kart World." But I understand like why it's the seller that it is. I totally get it. I just think I'm a different kind of like player
Sure.
for that kind of game.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks great.
Yeah, I am very excited for it. Next up, Drag X Drive. We touched on this very briefly. This is basically the game to help show off how the mouse controls work for the Switch 2. I feel like there's always like one game that kind of helps showcase things. It's like how we had ARMS right away for doing wireless, Joy-Con type stuff. This is definitely an interesting one because, look, when we saw ARMS, ARMS looked like a Nintendo game to me. I don't know if I'm getting that vibe from Drag X Drive. This is a 3v3 robot wheelchair basketball game where you control it like you would a wheelchair using the mice. So it's like, oh, you need to turn, you move the Joy-Cons in alternate directions because you're moving your wheels that way. And then you do motion controls for like throwing the ball into the hoop. Like, it seems neat. I guess there's like a certain layer of personality, especially because like the characters you play as look like they were very kind of bare bones. Like, oh yeah, you're a robot in a wheelchair, like playing basketball. Like ARMS, you have these high personality characters, and there's just a lot more going on. And this feels more like we made a game to showcase how the mouse could be used a cool way, and that's what this is.
I think this game looks sick. I think this game looks awesome, Kevin.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not with you on that one, buddy.
No, yeah, I was just like, oh, I cannot wait to play this with people. Like, I'm not crazy about the controls, but I also like get it, and I'm just like, yeah, this looks cool. I agree with you completely. Where like, it does not look like a Nintendo game. Like, ARMS definitely has that art direction where it's like, oh, this is the Nintendo ass game. This does not. It looks fun to play though. It looks really cool, and I'm excited to try it out. So that's all I have to say about that. Like the shooting looks cool, the dunking looks cool. I'm in.
It's quite nice to have
You're like,
home.
wow. You're probably. I did not expect that reaction from you.
I don't know if I said I didn't expect. I mean, I wasn't expecting you to like hate on it. I just didn't. Like that was like more like hype that I think I could have. Like my top level of hype to see from you that went above it. Certainly.
Yeah. No, I was just like, this looks cool. I like how they're implementing the controls, and I want to check it out. I really do. Kind of gives me like a Rocket League vibes.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit.
A bit.
Yeah, in terms of like just like a kind of chaotic multiplayer, but like also a relatively small number of players, right? Like 3v3 is not like a huge thing. So there's like you have a little more refined control where like each player really makes a difference.
Yeah.
For sure. This was not on my bingo card. I mean, I didn't really make one, but I would not have put this on here. Daemon X Machina is getting a sequel. Titanic Scion. It has been clarified since the Direct that this is not a Switch 2 exclusive. They've already listed that it's coming to a bunch of other platforms. But it's interesting. I thought Daemon X Machina was like a solid game. It's not like one of my absolute favorites. Its demo didn't do it any favors because the demo had a bunch of performance issues that like weren't present in the actual launch version of the game. If you're not familiar with Daemon X Machina, this was a mech game on the Switch that also went multi-platform eventually. The scope of this one looks a little different to me because whereas Daemon X Machina was like mechs, this looks a little closer to like power armor. Like they're a little smaller in scale. Like your limbs are going into the arms of the unit you're piloting. It looks cool to me. I feel like they backed off on the saturation a little bit because Daemon X Machina would hurt my eyes sometimes. So like this seemed a little less aggressive to me. I thought the first one was fine. I'm totally down to give this one a shot and see if it's like a marked improvement.
And just for clarification, because I want to make sure I'm right here, Daemon X Machina, the first one, was a Switch exclusive, like console wise, and then it was also on PC.
Yes, that one was strictly Switch at launch and then eventually went to PC. This one, let me double check right now. I just know I saw that it was not a Switch 2 exclusive, but I believe I saw that it was going like full multi-platform.
Yeah, because when I first saw this game, I thought it was a re-release because I didn't think that Damon X Machina like did super well. But I guess it did enough where that because is that a Bandai Namco or is that Xseed?
Exceed.
Okay.
It's Exceed.
Yeah, Xseed's is definitely willing to take more like risks on things like that, and like it does look good. It looks like a lot prettier than I expected it to be. So
Yeah.
I haven't played Daemon X Machina. I've been meaning. It's actually one of the few Switch games that I still need to like pick up. But that is a game that I want to check out, and if I like it, like maybe I'll play it on the Switch too. I probably will, just because like this is the only system that has a physical release on console. So I'll just be like, might as well just like stick with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
that's cool.
and then
It was cool surprise.
yeah, and then just to confirm, it is full blown multi platform. Windows, Switch 2, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S.
Cool.
Neat. What do we got next? We got Bravely Default HD Remaster. Another one that we talked about how like Bravely Default could maybe be tapped into. I didn't actually have a remaster on my list though.
Before we get into this, I know that when you saw that trailer start, you thought that was
No.
Garnet.
No, I didn't.
Really you didn't.
No, because I love Bravely Default and I know what Agnes looks like.
Okay.
But no, like
I know what
I totally
Agnes
know that. I totally know that thing happened because like the body proportions of Bravely Default are very similar to the body proportions of FF9. Like different era of games, but it is they both kind of have that chibi look a little bit, where it's like bigger head, smaller body. And Agnes and Garnet are definitely like the same archetypical look, right? Long brown hair, kind of regal priestly looking character. Like I get it. I saw a few people have that confusion. I knew it was Bravely Default from the get go. Like the moment that started up, I was like, oh, this is Bravely Default.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. It's cool.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it too. Again, we're going back to the game card thing. It's like, yes, that whole situation sucks.
Yes.
But I'm still going to get it because it's going to have. First off, I know that Bravely Default is a very long game, just like Bravely Default 2 is, and having these quality of life improvements, I think, is going to significantly enhance my experience, like that trying to get through that game and that series. One thing that's worth mentioning, very small detail that I thought was really interesting, is that the 3DS, so in the 3DS version, you were able to basically turn off random encounters.
Yes, you had an encounter controller.
In the remaster, that is not the case. You're able to cut it in half, but you're not able to turn it off completely. And a lot of people are upset about that. I've seen a lot of people upset about that online.
I can understand that. I'm personally kind of cool with it. Like I think half is enough because it still keeps a certain sense of danger around. But especially since the original did give you the ability to do the full zero, I could absolutely see why taking that away is rough. As long as I have my programmable auto battle and 4x speed, I'm happy. Like give me a way to spam encounters to level up jobs, and I'm good. But I totally get why that would bother people.
Yeah, so like if I remember correctly, that is a day one release game. Like
I believe so.
I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to, because again, like with the Switch price, like how my personal life is, the Switch price, and what the government just did today as of recording, who knows how this stuff is going to change in the next 2 months. But this is a game that I want to pick up like soon, and it is a game that is a series that I've been meaning to get to. And also now that it is been ported, I'm more likely to be like, let's put this in Campfire catalog poll next time around and see what happens, because it's more accessible.
And hopefully Bravely Second follows it at some point. I feel like it would need to, but we'll see.
Yeah. No, that would make sense.
Yeah. One other thing worth shouting out real quick is that along with being an HD remaster that's all shiny and pretty, etc., they did also say that there's going to be some new mini games and little content that's based around Switch 2 special features. So they're going to do things like involve the microphone, involve the mouse controls, not to the core gameplay, but they're going to find ways to work them in for just some little aspects of it. So we'll see how that all looks in the final version.
Yeah, There's one last thing I want to talk about regarding this, and we talked about it a little bit already. But even though we got Bravely Default and Remake, integrate on this presentation,
Surprising lack of Square.
Surprisingly lack of Square.
Yes.
Surprisingly lack of Square. And I know that the past like 2 years, they've had some pretty significant like length of notable releases. But even then, like they still always have at least like one big game every year.
Yeah.
And we still don't know what that is. And I felt like that would have been the time to do it. And so, like, granted, we still have SGF time. It could be at SGF. It could be at the Xbox showcase. It could be at a future Nintendo Switch Direct. Like, it's totally possible. But I just feel like by this time of the year, we would know what that game is, and we don't. And so I'm starting to be like, maybe Square's just like pretty quiet this year, which again is understandable. But I just kind of want to know, like, hey, what is the one big thing that you got going on?
Yeah, I mean, like there has been plenty of rumor that this could just be like an off, slower year for them. I realize that we've had a lot of releases over the last few years, but also there's been talk about like reprioritizing their actual lineup of like stuff they're working on, and so this might be kind of the year where, because of changing internal plans and projects they're working on, where we just end up not getting anything. I mean, we're not getting nothing, but we're not getting like, a big tentpole release. Or maybe they're saving it for SGF. Maybe it's something where they'd rather market with PlayStation for some reason. It's just that because Square Enix has been kind of like the number one third party at a lot of directs, there was this not full-blown assumption, but just this kind of idea that like, yeah, like Square Enix does a lot of cool stuff at Nintendo Directs, and they tend to announce big things. And like, this is a cool thing. Like, this is a big thing to me, but it's not quite, I think, on the same par, especially being a remaster and not like a brand new title.
Yeah, because like right now, what we know so far for certain, that is like a. I'm not really considering remake because it is more of a direct port, but like of like new stuff. So like the Bravely Default remaster. And then we have Dragon Quest 1 and 2 remake. And is that it right now?
Technically Saga Frontier 2 remaster, which
Saga Frontier 2 remaster just came out too.
But again, all remasters and remakes. So like I don't know, man. I like there's a couple titles we kind of generally know about eventually happening, right? Like I know people were hoping that we'd maybe get news about Dragon Quest 12 at some point. I don't know.
Like I mean like I think like the 4 things that have been floating around that we know about, and even then like Brittany Brombacher, who like is definitely an industry vet, and like she can learn things that have not gone public, but like she mentioned on her social media that 9 remake has seemingly been canceled. I don't know, we don't know if that's true, of course, but like that is something to put in perspective. Like she's a voice that I trust, so who knows about that.
Sure. And, like, plans change.
But even with that in mind, we're not going over any other news, but we did get that 25th anniversary website for Final Fantasy 9 over the past week, which also is just like, it could be nothing.
Yeah.
It could be nothing.
I mean, like the 25th anniversary is the 25th anniversary, right? Like that doesn't change with what games they're working on. That game came out 25 years ago, and they still are going to do stuff to celebrate that. Like we saw the vinyl reveal and stuff. But like, as cool as it would be, that does not mean there has to be a 9 remake drop. I would love that to happen.
Oh no.
But like,
I'm not. I wasn't trying to say that, but I was like this would be, if there is one, this would be a great year to do it.
Yes,
yeah. So
I agree.
We'll see.
Next up on the list, Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. The one thing I kind of speculated and was right about. Damn it. If we're gonna get something Zelda and it's not a remaster, it's gonna be a collab title, and it's probably Hyrule Warriors. Neat. I liked Age of Calamity. I'm down for like another one. The base pitch of this one is that it's tied to Tears of the Kingdom. Without getting too deep in spoilers, Tears of the Kingdom has a whole thing that has to do with a war that happened a ways back, involving Zelda. And this is taking place during that time. Looks like Zelda is the main star. We got 2 Zelda games back to back starring Zelda. That's pretty freaking cool.
That's pretty
And
cool.
like, we didn't even see Link in the trailer. I would be very surprised if he just doesn't make it in at all. I'm sure there'll be some weird plot contrivance where he makes his way there. But yeah, I'm down to see more. We didn't really see, like, I feel like of all the games revealed, this is the one we saw the least of. There was a lot of kind of lore build up at the start, and then like a quick flash of the combat. So I definitely want to see more of this one.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played any of the Nintendo Collaborative Warriors games, but I want to play them all. So I'll get to it eventually. I'm always down for more of that. And I actually was pretty interested in Tears of the Kingdom story. But like, a lot of that interesting exposition was happening during this time in the narrative, and so that's really cool. But I also like, just from word of mouth, I'm sure you can speak on this too, that like Age of Calamity felt like, leading up to its launch, Age of Calamity like felt like it had a lot of potential to have this very strong narrative tie-in to Breath of the Wild, and like ultimately didn't really. And so like I'm kind of worried that this will be a similar scenario.
I think this will 100% be the same scenario. And to clarify
Okay.
what that non-strong tie is the fact that it doesn't. The original Age of Calamity is like an alternate timeline deal, where it does involve events that are in history, but then it diverts from what like Breath of the Wild's established history is.
Oh, that's lame.
And so I would not be surprised to see that be the case here as well. Like, it'd be cool if it was, because I do think that would be a better choice, but diverting gives them the freedom to do things like include a lot more characters that just canonically would not make sense to show up. And, if there's one thing about Warrior games, aside from the most recent one, Origins, big rosters. Gotta get as many playable characters as you can. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'd like to see them experiment with it a little bit, but yeah. One thing that was not at the Direct, and it's tied more to Tears of the Kingdom than this, but I feel like if there was ever a time to bring it up, it's now. We are also getting amiibo that are Zelda themed. Along with the Street Fighter ones, we're getting 5 new Zelda amiibo. 4 will be available on launch, with 1 coming out later, based on the sages from Tears of the Kingdom. Something I want to shout out too that I just learned while we've been recording. The Zelda amiibo are $20, which like that's kind of been the going rate for a lot of the more recent ones. The Street Fighter ones are $30 individually.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention this if you did not already, because I knew when you mentioned Street Fighter, I was just like, oh, I don't want to ruin the flow, so I just kept it going.
Yeah.
But they're really nice looking amiibos though.
No, they're fancy. And look, Capcom licensing is absolutely like putting a little premium on top of that, right? Like, it's not their IP, so there's going to be a little more there. But
yeah, and the 5th amiibo is a minor golem for
it's Mineru's avatar, or Mineru's like construct.
I don't know what that means, so I'm just gonna say okay.
How far did you get in Tears of the Kingdom?
I don't know. I don't remember.
So it's basically it's plot stuff. Don't worry about it. Anyways, yeah. So another Warriors. Next up, unless do you have anything else on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. What? So is the minor golem the construct? Is that the name of the construct?
So it's Mineru's golem. So one of the sages. Okay, minor spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom. Skip ahead in 20 seconds if you don't know this.
Okay.
One of the sages, Mineru, you don't meet alive because she's like been gone a long time, and her spirit inhabits the construct that you build, and so that's her, but not.
Apparently, they're titling it minor golem.
Interesting. I saw Mineru's construct like under a bunch of press releases earlier, so I wonder maybe it's different. Weird they would make that like a separate one that releases later. Maybe they changed it for spoiler reasons. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but like Amiibo News has it. Like Nintendo Wire is like who reported it. But yeah, it says Minor Golem, Tears of the Kingdom, The Legend of Zelda series, release date undecided / open price.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder if that's autocorrect getting people, or maybe they wanted to go with a less spoilery name. I don't know, because I've absolutely seen the other name used elsewhere. Um, Moving on. Kind of a new game, kind of not. Kind of an ongoing developing one. That this definitely won't be Switch exclusive, but this is certainly a big debut for it. Deltarune chapters 1 through 4. 1 and 2 have been around as like a free demo. Now you can get 1 through 4. This will be when you have to buy in. But what's cool is it's a pretty nice price, $25. You get those 4 chapters, and there's additional chapters on their way that will be free DLC. They're not charging anything past that. So once you do this buy-in, you are ready to go for the rest of Deltarune. Super hyped. Just, I mean, like, I can't, like, it's just like, what is there to say? It's more Deltarune Undertale. Love it.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. I'm still not going to play it until it's all said and done because I just don't want to wait chapter by chapter.
That's part of the experience. I guarantee that's part of the intent.
I don't care.
Damn it.
I play Telltale games episodically and I wait till they're done, and that did not affect my joy of those games. But yeah, it's cool that he finally showed it off. I don't think anyone really expected that at this show, but also like it also makes sense. I do think that over time, Undertale has started to has become pretty synonymous with the Switch. So
yeah, I mean,
big
given its
W.
inspirations, like it, yeah, I think there's just a natural kind of feeling of like, I feel like PC still for me just because of how like that was really the first landing place for both. But out of the consoles,
Yeah,
definitely Nintendo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, easily. Okay, the wildest frickin' reveal, like not first party, arguably the prestige third party like tie-in that we thought would be Square but wasn't. No one had this, like no one predicted this. If anyone would have predicted it, they would have been mocked and laughed at. But it's happening. Basically, Bloodborne 2 is coming to the Switch 2 as an exclusive. It's not called Bloodborne 2 because you couldn't do that. That is not an option. But From Software is releasing a new game on Switch 2 that will be an exclusive. Who knows if that actually means timed in the long run, but they're using the word exclusive for now, called the Duskbloods. This looks like Bloodborne, but now you're a vampire. I'm 100% in. I so badly want to know the full story on this. Like, I'm so curious why Sony has done nothing with Bloodborne for a decade, and now we're getting what looks to be an intended sequel with a new name on an entirely different platform.
Yeah, I'm not a big Souls-like guy. We know this.
Yeah.
For those that have listened before.
But it's Bloodborne.
I think we initially. Yeah, that's fine.
It's so
I think
good.
like because like when it was playing, I think we you mentioned and and we both like kind of had the same idea that like, is this a Castlevania game?
Oh no, I thought it was Bloodborne from the start.
Oh, really?
That's why I just started cursing in chat because I was like, no, there's no fucking way. Like, how is this even possible that this is happening right now? I think it was Mitch who might have said Castlevania.
Oh, okay.
Someone else chimed in with, I that's why I was cursing so much in chat because I was just like, no, like how? How is this how is this a reality in this moment? It sounds so made up to even talk about right now.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like weird clickbait stuff to be like Bloodborne 2 coming to Switch, which, I mean, it's not. It's called Duskbloods, but it's Bloodborne 2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Like, if that's what, like, listen, for me, from my outside perspective, I feel like people that really love Bloodborne for Yharnam and that world and that and the lore and everything behind that world. And that's not what this is. That's like, this isn't Yharnam. This isn't like those things.
It's a new setting, but like, it's from the same people writing the same lore. Like, it's not because Yharnam is Yharnam that it's good. It's because Yharnam was made by the folks that are making this. And like, we can have a new setting that is just as incredible with the same kind of tone.
Sure, but I also feel like people don't talk about this like with Dark Souls 1 and 3. Like, I think there's specific things about like Dark Souls 1 with like the level design. Like, the level design is so incredible in Dark Souls 1.
That's also what I mean by saying that this is very clearly like the style they're doing this of is meant to capture the same approach of world building and style that Bloodborne specifically has. Like, this is very clearly the same type of setting.
That I can understand what you're saying. Like the way that it's presented, it does feel like Bloodborne more than any of the other FromSoft games. I can totally co-sign that. I agree with you there. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'll play it, I'll check it out, but outside of Sekiro, like there hasn't been a Souls-like game that's really stuck with me that I've seen all the way through. And I have not played Bloodborne because there are giant spiders in that game. So
Fair.
no, thank you.
It was my 2015 game of the year, so like I'm all in on this.
Oh yeah, like I know so many people that like absolutely love Bloodborne, think Bloodborne is still like the best FromSoft game. Totally understand that. And I know that you're a big FromSoft guy. Like I'm super happy for you. I'm just speaking this like for myself.
Sure.
I will probably play it like and buy it and play it like I did Elden Ring. I'll probably put in like 10 to 15 hours and then I will bow out. Because I have not gotten to I've not played any Souls-like game that has gravitated towards me to the point where like I'm like I need to see this game all the way through. It's like, okay, I get what this experience is. I understand it. I'm good.
But do you though? No, I'm not going to drag this out. Yeah, no, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
People who are really freaking hyped, and I'm sure there's also plenty of people that are in your case where it's just like, okay, where's Smash? Or not that this is your take, but I'm just saying like, yeah, there's definitely people who are not into From or that particular game that are just like, why are people freaking out about this?
Yeah, it's like imagine if I like just somehow knew, I don't know, and I told you privately like, hey, what if I told you there's a new Miyazaki FromSoft game at the Switch 2 presentation that is exclusive to the console? You would say, shut the fuck up, you motherfucker, you're lying to me. And then I would be like, I'm not. And then you would still not believe it until you saw it.
Yeah, especially with it looking this specific way. Like, yeah, wild stuff.
Yeah.
We got 2 games left that are first party. Well, just 2 games left in general, really. I'm not going to have too much to say on this one, other than how it has dashed my hopes and dreams of something else. Kirby Air Riders. This is the new project that Sakurai has been working on. And look, I'm very happy for Kirby fans. I have one mutual who is all about Kirby, and I just immediately thought of him and was happy for him. Shout out to Antude. I'm sure this was a great Direct 2 reveal for him. Switch 2 Direct. But yeah, any dreams of Kid Icarus Uprising happening? Yeah, that's gone. That's much down the timeline now, because we're getting Kirby's Air Riders, and then Smash is probably the next thing he's going to end up working on. So they're not going to wait that much longer for that. Yeah, looks neat. I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, can I say? Yeah, we don't know a lot about it. Can I just say that?
Well, I just don't even know about the game it's a sequel to, because like Air Ride is a previous title, and I'd never played it, so I don't like. You can kind of piece together based on the game it's a sequel to, but like I never played it.
Kirby's Air Ride is super fun, super duper fun. That is a game that I hope gets added to GameCube for sure. I don't remember, admittedly, like how much like story there is into play or how much like how that is all structured, but it's a very fun game to play. That being said, when this trailer started, you thought it was Smash, right? Like the way that it was presented, the way because the thing, the way that the trailer was presented, you knew it was a Sakurai game, because like he just has, after seeing so many like of the Smash trailers,
well, and the
you can see the direction.
Yeah, and the star falling was very clearly like the Kirby Warp Star, like that was that was obvious. But I was in the chat being like, oh, another call that Cam was right about, because you had talked about getting a Smash reveal this soon, and what had me thinking it was Smash wasn't just because of like the Warp Star, like that's just Kirby, that could be any Kirby, but they do that quick like something hits it flying down, and then something hits it flying like left to right, and it's a shot, it's like a cross shape, and it's got that like swing kind of sound effect. So it's like, oh, is that like the Smash Brothers cross like symbol thing? Like, is that what's happening with those two like slashes happening? And no, it was just the star falling, getting hit by stuff, and then Kirby's on it.
Yeah, there really was so much that, because I don't remember if I said it specifically this way or not, but like I definitely like meant it that way when I said it, but like I thought that whatever Sakurai was working on, we were going to see it today. Or yeah, today. Um and so also with the Smash trailers, you know, Kirby's his baby, right? So like Kirby always plays a focus too.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's just like, again, it had the Smash vibes, it had the Sakurai direction, and when we see Kirby, I'm like, oh, this has to be Smash. This has to be some sort of setup for Smash. Because I just didn't think that Kirby Air Ride 2 would like ever happen.
yeah,
I think that like, but I also know that Sakurai is like the one developer that isn't Miyamoto that like even Nintendo is like, okay, you've done this for us. You get to do basically whatever you want to do. Like, I think that he has earned that from Nintendo, and I think that that is the kind of relationship that Nintendo and Sakurai have.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, he was like, I want to make Kirby Air Riders now. And they're like, do it. Like,
yeah.
I think it was just like that quick and simple.
Sure.
And so I'm excited to see what that looks like, especially after all this time. Um, you know, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to like blow people away in a major way, but I think it's going to be like a game that people want, and that's like Sakurai. You know, I think it's going to be like how people feel about Kid Icarus Uprising. Like it's going to do well. There's going to be a passionate like fan base around that game, but it isn't going to like, I don't even want to compare it to Smash, but it's not going to do like big numbers,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Like I would be very like kind of like how Smash and a few other titles are the ones that you would predict to be in like the top 10 sales or whatever, because Nintendo has their like list of, you know, top selling software per platform. Like I don't see this breaking into that. Like maybe at the very beginning when there's not like as many titles, but like I don't see this being like a consistent, oh yeah, like that's one of the most top selling Switch games of all time. No, it's not going to do Smash numbers. It's not going to do Pokemon numbers. But it will have its passionate fans. Absolutely. And
and
I'm going to try it.
and I do want to mention, because I think a lot of people are starting or just have this assumption, but this game is coming out this year. It's not a 2026 game. This is a 2025 game. So that's interesting, just considering Mario Kart World is also coming out this year. But again, like people that are going to show up for Kirby Air Ride are going to show up for Kirby Air Ride. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, our final game. I feel it is important to note going into this how much one of the most assumed reveals we were going to get at this direct was a new 3D Mario. Like that was, if there was any big first party IP reveal, 3D Mario was just like the thing most people defaulted to. And so we started off with a trailer that certainly showed what looked like a 3D platformer style kind of game. And it is not 3D Mario. It is a brand freaking new 3D Donkey Kong game with an incredible name, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Love the titling.
yeah,
I will say the funny thing about this reveal to me is, in retrospect, the Donkey Kong redesign makes like even so much more sense. Like a lot of people wrote it off right away as just being simply like, oh, they want to look closer to like the movie Donkey Kong, whatever, blah blah blah. Like, no, that like they were doing a brand new game with this new style, and it's reflected in Mario Kart. Look, like I would have been excited for 3D Mario. I'm super excited for this. Like this looks great to me.
I think I need to see more gameplay. I think I've just come to terms that like I'm not even like, I don't even want to go that far that I'm not like a big 3D platformer guy. Like I think I am. Like I love Sonic. I love I'm one of those people that love Sunshine. I love 3D World so much. Um you know, I enjoyed what I have played of Odyssey. I still haven't finished it. But I just like, I don't know if like what I saw in that trailer was like what I want from a 3D platformer, I guess.
Yeah.
I and so it's definitely a game I'm gonna buy. I'm definitely gonna play it. But it just hasn't really like been like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm gonna play this I'm not like one of those people that like have been wanting the sequel to Donkey Kong 64 for the
Mhm.
past 20 years. So it's like cool. Like we'll see what happens. I think I'm more excited about it simply because it's just not another 3D Mario game.
Sure.
That we are getting something different. Um, and because there was like I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years ago. It was a long time ago. That there were rumors that the Odyssey team was working on a 3D DK game,
Mhm.
and those rumors just kind of came and went. And then and then we just didn't really hear any like follow up to that for till now. So the fact that that came into reality is like really exciting. Um, but yeah, it looks cool. We'll see. I do like the name. The box art is stellar. Like
Yes.
the art style is really
So
cool.
good. And thankfully, he's not
So
one of the ones messed up by like a Switch 2 edition badge or whatever. Like nice and clean. Love
yeah,
it.
yeah, and so I just hope it's just not like this major like collectathon like Odyssey was. I know people loved that aspect of Odyssey, collecting all the moons. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
Uh,
I to be honest, I lean towards that being the case here only because the collectathon style I think is very heavily associated with like the 3D rare era, which like if the
mhm.
goal here is to tap a little bit into like Donkey Kong 64 vibes and like kind of, a rare style game, um I would expect it to be more of a collectathon, but that's not set in stone. Obviously, like who knows? Like we don't really know. If I had to assume like a 3D platformer framework, that's what I'm assuming for this. Uh, but they might go a different route.
Yeah, and it comes out soon. It comes out a month after the release, so that's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, July 17th. Super quick.
Yep, yep. So like again, at launch, like I'm gonna get the console, and I'll probably get Mario Kart. And I want to get Bravely Default, but that just kind of depends on things and stuff. And then Donkey Kong the next month, and those are like three easy games to want to pick up and kind of start out the Switch 2 experience.
Yep. Um, I got a couple random things that we just haven't found a way to get to, that
Sure,
are just like other things we've learned. And then I just want to get like kind of a general vibe, I think, from both of us on like how this all was.
sure.
Everything, like both the direct and what we learned after. Um, Apparently, the screenshot function in Switch 2 is now going to auto upload to the app instead of having to like manually go through your album and be
Oh,
like,
thank
yes,
God.
upload to whatever. So like that's great. And two, uh, they posted a bunch of interviews with like people working on games as well as working on the system itself, and it is confirmed that at one point Super Nintendo Switch was considered as a title for the system.
I'm so upset.
And the really crazy thing is their logic is the exact opposite of what a lot of people assumed would be why they wouldn't want to use it. So the
Okay.
assumption is, oh, Super Nintendo Switch is too confusing. It doesn't clarify it different enough from the Switch. It'd be like the Wii U all over again, blah, blah, blah. Nintendo's logic was that it would evoke too much of the Super Nintendo vibe, where the Super Nintendo was not a backwards compatible system. So it would be unclear to people that the Super Nintendo Switch would play Switch 1 games. Yeah, it's like it's not the confusion of systems, it's that it would sound too different and people would assume back compat isn't a thing.
But
Yeah. Wild, right? They were
put it
like
on the
Switch,
box.
yeah.
Put it on the box.
Switch 2 was
Plays
nice and
Nintendo
clear.
Switch games.
Yep. That
What?
yeah, was apparently the logic. I interesting, right?
I'm gonna
This is the
swing.
timeline
I'm
I
gonna
would prefer,
swing.
but here we are with Switch 2. I fought a lot against the idea that Switch 2 was going to be the name, and I've accepted that I was wrong on that, as I have accepted I'm wrong about the whole Metroid Prime 4 thing. Whatever, it happens. But like just knowing that it was in the running and just lost out it's both salt in the wound, but also just like, all right, like I wasn't that off base thinking this. Like it
No,
was in the
Switch. Yeah,
running. We just
I do
didn't make
not
it.
like this. I do not like the name Switch 2. I really don't. It's just like the most bland, uninspiring, like bizarre. And then yeah, again, just kind of reminds me of the box art. Like it's just like who thought this was a good idea? Like not even like with the upgraded editions, but like who thought it was a good idea to have this giant ass red bar taking up so much space and then just having the like if you did like Nintendo Switch 2 spelled out. Like I saw someone post an updated version of it just looking like Nintendo Switch 2 all spelled out. It looks so much better. It looks so much better. Anyway.
Yep, it is what it is. Switch 2, here we are. You know, this is the timeline we're in. Um, yeah, I think that basically covers everything. I knew this was going to be a long one. It's not as bad as I was afraid it was going to be. Quick kind of wrap up thought. Oh,
one thing we didn't talk about.
Uh-oh. What did I forget?
Welcome Tour.
Oh, I forgot about Welcome Tour. I keep pushing it out of my brain.
Yeah.
Okay. So Welcome Tour is the tutorial game for the system because, like, it makes sense to have a tutorial game. And just like with the Switch and 1-2 Switch, it is a sold separately title you have to buy. I believe it's digital only, and we have not seen pricing yet because it's digital only, because you can't pre-order a physical copy of it. I don't know what price point they're going to go for that. I would hope it's a low one. But yeah, it's literally a game where it's like you can explore the Switch 2 and learn about its internals and play fun little mini games that showcase, you know, how its features work. And it's cool that it exists. I don't know why it's sold separately. Like it was confusing for 1-2 Switch, and it's more confusing this time.
Yeah, it sucks ass. Even if this is like $10, like it's just unacceptable to me. Like, especially this is a game that's supposed to teach you, like, or like supposed to educate people on how to use your system, like, and you're trying to sell that for money. No,
Yep.
that's gonna be a no from me, dog.
Yep. I mean, who knows? Maybe the price difference on that is what they took out of thinking of selling the console for. I don't know. It's weird. Not a
Yeah.
fan. Yeah, it's. I'm very curious what the sales numbers on that are going to end up being because I don't know how many people are really going to care about that unless it's like the cheapest of like $5. Anything higher than that, I don't know who's buying this.
Yeah.
Other than like dedicated Nintendo heads that are just like, well, I have to. But yep. Well, that was a sour note to end that on.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, overall, what were your thoughts, Kevin?
Look, I think the direct itself was great. There are certainly I can always, rant about stuff I wish we got that we didn't, but like I'm happy with a lot of stuff we did get confirmed. I think Mario Kart World looks fantastic. Super excited for Donkey Kong Bonanza. Again, frickin' the Dusk Bloods is such an out of nowhere reveal. A lot of the stuff coming out afterwards, I'm definitely a little more mixed on. Don't love game key style games. Like I can see how it's better than just like a purely digital code in a box only situation, but like
Yeah.
it's like, yes, obviously this is better than the absolute worst case scenario. Uh, you know, I'm especially saddened by it because, Bravely Default is a game I'm excited for, and turns out that is like one of the 2 games that are now going to be flexing that, which just really wrecks the box art. Yeah, like I have my complaints. I have stuff I'm a little soured on. There's a lot of pricing stuff that, I wish the overall cost of buying into the system was a little lower, just with the across the board game price increase, the higher MSRP than we expected. Not like crazy higher, but still a little higher than I think we were all hoping to see. And the complete uncertainty of it might even go up more because, boy, is it great right now in the economy. Yeah, I'm overall happy. I definitely have a couple hangups, but like I think this is generally overall the right direction. And at the end of the day, the games are what I care about, and I'm very happy with what we saw there. I just need
Cool.
Fire Emblem. Where's Fire Emblem?
Yeah. That's what we didn't talk about. No Fire Emblem outside of Path of Radiance. But yeah, I thought this was a solid 8 out of 10. I know people are a lot higher on it. I thought the first, like outside of Mario Kart, I thought the first half of that direct was incredibly slow. But again, it was things that needed to be addressed. Like it had to happen. I just think those things just went on for way too long. And so, but like once we got into the games, once we got into that more aspect, like everything that was announced more or less, like looked good. Like, you know, even if the game wasn't for me, it was like, this looks cool. Like, you know, there was like that weird kind of montage of different 2K games. But again, like deals were made, whatever it may be. Um, so uh I'm excited for the Switch 2. Again, some things just feel uncertain right now. But I really liked it. I'm very happy about the GameCube stuff. Very, very, very happy. That was like probably the even though like it's something that could have been in any other direct, that was like probably the thing that I was like most excited about overall. But you know, I'm gonna like what I what I like. But yeah, I'm excited for Bravely Default. I'm excited for Mario Kart. I'm excited for Donkey Kong. And I'm excited for the Street Fighter amiibos. I don't know if I'm gonna cop straight away, but I'm very interested. But yeah, good
I'm
stuff.
definitely tempted for Jamie specifically because that is one of the characters I play. So, yeah.
Alrighty, everybody. Well, that was our thoughts on the Switch 2 Direct. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back to your regularly scheduled programming starting next week. But until then, I'm Cam, that's Kevin, and we'll catch you later.
Later.